Evening, race fans, and welcome to Iowa for the Belly Up Sports Cup Series Iowa Corn 350 from the Elite Racing Network. My name is David Westergreen. I will be joined tonight by David Huckleberry and Zach Evans, and we're going to run, I believe, 350 full laps at this Iowa Speedway track. Bringing in Zach early here tonight. Zach, an endurance race for these drivers tonight. A couple of big names missing this evening. You know, the points standings up on the board right now. You know, what do you think these guys are going to, keep in mind as we roll around Iowa tonight?
One of the big challenges at Iowa, pretty much regardless of what kind of car you're racing here on iRacing, is managing the tires. It's a pretty high speed track for a short track. You tend to have these short track setups, but you're putting a lot of abuse, particularly on the right side tires, whether you're either burying it into the corner and loading up the right front or trying to drive it off the corner, loading up the right rear. And the other thing is I don't want to jinx it, especially after last week, but Iowa has a lot of racing room for a short track, so you tend to see some long green flag runs here, and that's when that tire management can become really crucial. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over 350 laps tonight.
It definitely will. And, talking to drivers before the race, a lot of those guys were mentioning that the right rear tire is the one with the current setup that will be wearing the most. A hot track, over 100 degrees. And then, these guys, as the day goes on, they're going to have to monitor the tire usage because I don't think we have our race information, but we will have 9 sets of tires in the race in the pit lane tonight. So, they'll be definitely pitting for tires a number of times, but it will be possible to, I think, run out of tires over the course of these 350 laps. Should we get some of those green flag runs and guys being really aggressive with changing the tires early in the night. Believe that qualifying is wrapping up right now. It's already wrapped up. And on the pole for tonight's race will be the guy who won on Monday night in the Grand National Series. That'll be Jonathan Cutlip in the 5 car, and it's been a meteoric rise. We'll talk about Jonathan Cutlip's rise this season a good bit, I think, tonight over the course of 350 laps. On his outside is Ethan Stanley. Starting in the second row will be Matthew Weeks and Gavin Hibbs. Third row is Ryan Schuld and Zach Rogers. Fourth row will be Scott Crump and Justin Wadsworth, Lake Norman teammates. Fifth row is also Lake Norman teammates. That's Tyler Fody and Ryan Gable. Ray Bracey and Jesse Racemith will go from row 6.
The 7th row has Seth Rawls alongside Chad Frankenfield. Behind that, Michael Hossack starting 15th. Justin Vandermarl will roll off from the 16th position. Joshua Clark lines up 17th. Alongside him, a Leighton Norgard in car 12. Trey Holmes, Jordan Owens making up the 10th row. Chris Wright, Dustin Dewar on row 11. Kyle Hanshaw and Josh Adams will be on row 12.
After Josh Adams, in that 13th row, it'll be Brent Jones and Joshua Personette. Michael Goodman and Carlos Acosta will be row 14. Johnny Thomas and Nick Indelicato, row 15. Ty McIntosh and Corey Abbott will roll from row 16 with Casey Hatch and Mark Urbilas behind them. And then it's Andrew Rucker bringing up the tail of the field. Jesse Vaughn will not be starting this one. Only 36 cars for this Iowa Corn 350, Zach. And, it's one of those times where Iowa, the short track, could play a factor, but I do hope we get more Iowa, the intermediate track tonight.
I think after last week in particular at Martinsville, we're all hoping to see a little more green flag racing, a little more excitement here in the Iowa Corn 350. Certainly only time will tell what kind of race we actually get, but I think we'd all prefer to see a little bit more actual green flag racing here this evening.
One quick administrative note, guys. Due to be race control until 8:30 when the guy will be here on the normal time. And then if you give me the call, I will text it to drivers in driver chat so they put.
Wildly,
So-
that may be the best race control you've had all season long.
Yep.
Just
Mm.
two people's opinion. If we don't agree, it's a racing deal.
And you'll be talking it out on live television.
Yep. Everyone will know the thought.
I will be invoicing for extra pay for this.
Yep. We got Jonathan Cutlip, Ethan Stanley on that front row, Matthew Weeks, Gavin Hibbs in row 2, and I do want to call note before we get started tonight. We talked about Jonathan Cutlip needing a win a lot this season. That's a guy who is currently in the chase on points. A guy who does need a win is sitting there in 4th. He's had 2 consecutive heartbreaking finishes at these short tracks. Gavin Hibbs starting 4th tonight, qualified very strong. I'm looking for that 95 car to try and make a move for a race win tonight. 350 laps around Iowa upcoming. Got lots of time to talk about these various storylines. Jonathan Cutlip leading the field to the green flag. He gets to the restart zone, gets on the loud pedal, and we are racing in Iowa. Jonathan Cutlip helped by Matthew Weeks down into turn 1. He will battle Ethan Stanley off towards turn 2.
Off of turn 2, they'll go. Jonathan Cutlip, Ethan Stanley side by side for the lead. So far, all good behind us. As we roll off turn 4, head towards the line to start the second lap.
Ethan Stanley making a charge on the outside lane at the line. I believe Ethan Stanley will lead the first lap of this Iowa 350. And that outside lane prevailing early on as everybody kind of filters to the bottom. The car on the move in this front group is Zach Rogers. He's jumped up to fourth from that 6th starting spot, bypassing Gavin Hibbs and Ryan Schuld, who's fallen all the way back to the 7th position here early.
See these front 10, maybe 15 cars or so singling out. Further back, still some side-by-side racing. Here's our first side-by-side battle. That's Ray Bracey in the green and yellow 7 car on the inside. He's going to try to pick up the spot there, racing Justin Vandermarl. That's for the 13th position.
Yep. Ray qualified pretty well. Michael Hosek behind, running up close to that outside wall, and looks like Seth Rawls now on the attack around that 7 Bojo car with Hosek and Leighton Norgard side by side just behind. I want to note that the drivers did say the car's pretty stable early in the run. It's not too bad, especially if you're not pushing. But what ends up happening is Bracey gets to the outside of Justin Vandermarl with a very good run through 3 and 4. You will see these cars start to snap loose and get really squirrely about 20 to 25 laps into the run, especially if they're not being very conservative with their throttle usage. And I think what you're seeing is these guys filter to the bottom. They're trying to be very careful with getting into the throttle. Every time you go up to that outside line, I think you're burning the right rear tire just a little bit more, and so it can be useful for making passes, like we saw with Ray Bracey right there. We saw with Ethan Stanley at the beginning of the race. But these guys are, I think, when they're running up in that high lane, they're going to be burning that right rear tire, and unfortunately, maybe using up some of the good of the tires that could potentially lead to incidents down the road. So I'd look for guys who are kind of running that outside line a lot to be the ones giving us trouble here in the next 20 laps.
Well, another thing to keep in mind along that line of thought is, especially with this next-gen car, the 5-gear transmission, it's not uncommon. I don't know how much we've heard about it necessarily tonight, but not uncommon at the shorter tracks to hear about guys downshifting from 5th to 4th in a corner. And certainly as the run goes on and the lap times drop, and you're carrying less RPM through the corner into the middle of the corner, the temptation at least gets stronger to grab that extra gear. But that's only going to exacerbate the tire wear, which kind of creates a neat little slippery slope as you get longer into a run, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure it is. And, I don't, at least from the guys I talked to early in this one, there wasn't too much talk of shifting. I think the car's just a little bit unstable for that, but I'm certain there are going to be some guys pulling out the shifting of gears with this next gen car. As we see Brent Jones, I think, barely make a little contact with the wall. Leighton Norgard side by side with Michael Goodman, who's moving forward a little bit here early in the going. Goody's up to 21st, working on a Norgard for 20th.
There you see Michael Goodman in that 44 car working the high side. He will get around. Well, maybe not. He's kind of pinned in behind Josh Clark at the moment. He definitely has the speed to make the pass, but he really can't go anywhere at the moment. So he's just going to wait patiently here, which is goody to a T. Not going to force the issue.
It is. And just behind him, got another guy up here, up in the points. That's Nick Indelicato. As we flip to Kyle Hanshaw. Think there was a bit of an incident for Kyle Hanshaw, and he's got loose there coming off of turn 4 onto the front straightaway. That car does not like that banking transition and ultimately sliding through the grass to the inside. And I don't think he's going to make any contact with that inside wall. Maybe just a little bit.
Just a kiss.
Oh, Norgard just did it right in front of Goody on the racetrack live. Norgard got loose, didn't have the same slide Hanshaw did, but that 12 car already showing some signs of being very unhappy.
And I was just going to say, you mentioned that transition. One thing with Iowa, for those unfamiliar, it has what we call the progressive banking, where as you go closer to the wall, there's a little bit more banking. Oh, trouble.
Yep, Michael Goodman's been blinking a good bit, and I don't know, we're technically race control. Dave, I'd probably warn the 44 for blinking, but not sure there was anything he could do about it. That was the reason for that contact between he and Nick Indelicato for sure. Ultimately, Goody blinking in and out for a full lap there, and that causes the slight incident with Indelicato.
It looks like it is stabilized at the moment.
Yep.
But
44 car still good for now.
Definitely a scary moment, and has undone a lot of his progress as far as working his way through the field, especially because now, I mean, he's even discussing it at the moment with the other drivers. Right now he's good, but if you see him blinking, let me know. I'll work with you, let you by. And that's tough when you're racing, right? Because you know the situation. Like we say, right now, so far, so good for him. But it's got to be in the back of his head for another 335 laps, even if he doesn't blink again for the rest of the night.
Right. And it's at the very least something you have to keep an eye on. But if there's one guy in this field that is very, very courteous, is willing to, give up a couple of positions in order to prevent a bigger incident due to something like that, it's Michael Goodman, right? I mean, you mentioned it earlier. Very courteous driver, very patient, willing to give up that spot now in hopes that later on he'll get you back. So, I think Goody, we're in good hands as a whole because it's Goody blinking here. And
good hands, huh?
Yeah. Good. Well, we have to get in the corny jokes as you mentioned.
It is the Iowa Corn 350. So,
yeah. If we scroll back up towards the front, the battle is between Ryan Gable and Ryan Stold for the 7th position. Gable utilizing Iowa's outside lane to hold off the 4 car. Jesse Racimus working in 9th. Chad Frankenfield is just behind this group in 10th. And then a little bit uncharacteristically just behind these guys, Scott Crump and Tyler Fode are sitting 11th and 12th, just in front of a battle we've already covered between Vander Marl and Bracey. A little bit less early race pace from the 90 and the 40 tonight, and I think that's intentional. I think these guys are trying to save their tires.
Right, and I think it's important to say, saving tires has got to be such an important thing tonight. That they are not preparing for a flood. These are not the sandbags getting pulled out. This is an attempt to maintain those tires for the rest of the race. You got to think big picture. We've got 330 more laps. Leading lap 20 doesn't matter. Leading lap 350 does.
Right. And for, Scott Crump, for Tyler Fode, ultimately for Matthew Weeks, who's up here in 3rd place, like 1.6 seconds off the lead, they're trying to maintain over the course of this entire first run. And, these guys already were saying words like maintain your tires and things that we didn't say at all for 250 laps of Martinsville last week.
The only thing we were trying to maintain last week was our sanity.
Some would argue that we never even got it back. Jonathan Cutlip has been about 1/10 to 2/10 behind Ethan Stanley up front for the better part of a couple of laps as we look at the battle between Josh Clark and Nick Indelicato. I'll keep an eye on that battle for the lead, let you know, Dave, if we need to switch over. But for now, this battle for second is pretty solid. And up front, it's Ethan Stanley, who's led every lap so far, all 22. But Jonathan Cutlip is putting the pressure on Ethan Stanley in this, what'd you call this, Zach? Like a Menard yellow number 5 car?
It's that shade of yellow. It's not the Menard sponsorship, but I think you're not far off to say it is that Menard. Oh, we're still green. I believe that is Brent Jones that went for a slide in turn 4, but kept it pointed the right direction. Almost came to a complete stop trying to gather up that car, but ultimately it did not bring out the caution. He has not, I don't believe, hit anything, and we're going to continue on.
As here comes the battle for the lead between Jonathan Cutlip and Ethan Stanley. Cutlip working the bottom lane at Iowa, and if you'll notice, well, maybe we haven't really run the right spot, but that bottom lane at Iowa, very slick. Easy to make a mistake through turn 2 at Iowa. I think on the bottom of the racetrack, you've got to kind of work that transition. And there's
right there.
Exactly what I was talking about. Just on the other side of the racetrack, turn 4, it's kind of the same. When you're transitioning up that progressive banking, it can get very sketchy if you are on the throttle the wrong way. And right there, Jonathan Cutlip a little bit loose and ultimately blinking now as he's going to, I think, lose a good bit of time to Matthew Weeks and to Ethan Stanley. And right now, I think the fastest car of those 3 is that 11 car. He's kind of been holding back. Oh, Chris Wright sideways on the back straightaway. He's going to save it. Chris Wright just about caused a wreck right in front of Johnny Thomas.
And this is what we're talking about. You mentioned it. We're 26 laps into this run. That's when the caches start getting checked in at the bank, right? This is where the people who've been really hard on those tires start. Oh, there's tire smoke. Somebody just spun in front of the leaders.
Dustin Dewar is the one who spun. He slid it all the way through turn 3. Ultimately got to pit road without causing any issues.
Well, now, okay. So this is still on our screen here, the battle for the lead with Ethan Stanley, Jonathan Cutlip. But like you said, watching these guys slide the corners, starting to see those tires burn up, and this is the challenging part in particular because we're only 30 laps in, or not even 28 laps into this run. There's a lot of fuel still in these race cars. You can't really, you don't want to be pitting this early in the run. You're going to have to just make these tires work for a while and hope you're not the person that brings out a caution.
Yeah, there's already been several near cautions, and I think we're probably going to get one here at some point. Cutlip still trying to work the bottom lane against Ethan Stanley. For now, it is not working out. Cutlip unable to gather any momentum on the bottom of the racetrack to get around this 91 car. He's also shifted up to the top of the track a couple of times. He has not generated anything there, so Ethan Stanley continues to hold the race lead for the Lake Norman Motorsports 91 against the Fueled Up Racing number 5 of Jonathan Cutlip. Cutting into their lead is Matthew Weeks there in third in that 11 car for Pro Edge Racing.
Just to kind of paint a picture here as we look at this side-by-side battle. Ryan Schultz's best lap of the race was a 24.7 back on lap 4. Right now, as he's in this battle, he's running, let's see, lap 28 was a 25.8, lap 29 was a 26.6, this time by a 26.1. So no matter how you slice it, that's
slowing down.
More than a second of fall off after just 30 laps on a short track.
Worth noting, Jonathan Cutlip got underneath Ethan Stanley. Ethan bobbled a little bit coming out of turn 2 last time through. Jonathan Cutlip goes to the race lead. And for the first time all night, a lead change. And Jonathan Cutlip in the 5 car takes over the top spot over Ethan Stanley. Here's a replay of that battle. Wasn't much of a battle. This 91 car was loose all the way through turns 1 and 2.
Jonathan Cutlip, 14th in points coming into tonight. He'd love a good run just to build up.
Oh, there's the yellow.
Oh, there you go. Let's see. Weird.
It is the 24 of Michael Hopak, it looks
Oh!
like. Oh, and there was also an incident between Kyle Hanshaw and Josh
Kyle.
Personette.
So are you saying there was another incident?
There was another incident.
Oh boy.
I'll take a look at Hosak. He had spun in 3 and 4, not too dissimilar to Dusty Dewar. Okay. Hanshaw, was that just him getting loose in front of the 48 and the 18 or what?
Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
Tally on the 46.
Yeah, that would be a tally on the 46 car if that was indeed what happened there. That's of Carlos Acosta in the infield care center. I think there may have been an incident involving the 0-2 before this caution came out while we were talking about the race lead changing. Oh yeah, Carl got the pit barrel. There's the incident for Michael Hosak, a loop. I think Carlos's day is done. I think he hit the pit barrels pretty hard. Dusty Dewar is also dropped from the server, and Jonathan Cutlip has led the entirety of the field down pit road.
Well, maybe take this chance to get in our first break while everybody's on pit road.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Since 2010, race fans have had one burning question. When will the Xfinity Series return to Worldwide Technology Raceway? You asked, NASCAR delivered. On Saturday, September 6, 2025, the magic is back. The track that launched the legendary careers of Harvick, Busch, Keselowski, Edwards, and Earnhardt Jr. is now ready to write that next chapter. We're going to introduce you to a new crop of future champions and Hall of Famers. And in the process, we'll create more of the greatest moments in racing history. NASCAR Weekend 2025, the NASCAR Cup Series Championship Playoffs, the Confluence Music Festival, and now 250 miles of the NASCAR Xfinity Series. 2 incredible races, 1 challenging track, a 3-day party of epic proportions. Go to www.raceway.com and lock in your weekend racing and camping packages for as little as $20 down. 3 years of sellout crowds, 3 years of edge-of-your-seat action, 3 years of jaw-dropping finishes. Worldwide Technology Raceway has rocked the world of NASCAR, and now NASCAR is giving us another reason to celebrate. The 2025 NASCAR Cup Series Championship Playoffs are coming. Sunday, September 7th, 2025. Just when you thought the racing couldn't get any more intense, now every single lap matters. One wrong move could be the difference between elimination and being crowned the king. The Enjoy Illinois 300, the Confluence Music Festival, the NASCAR Cup Series Playoffs, and for the first time in 15 years, the NASCAR Xfinity Series on Saturday, September 6th. Don't be on the outside looking in. See history being made in your own backyard. Go to www.raceway.com for the hottest ticket of the year.
Here.
We're back live.
We're back live.
All right.
Chaotic without our race control guy here yet.
Yeah, we're working our race control. Chris Wright has, I want to say, stayed out. He probably should consider pitting, given the fall off time. Jonathan Cutlip led the field onto and off of pit road. We saw Matthew Weeks lose a number of spots on pit road. While we're pacing here under yellow, let's real quick bring up Carlos Acosta and give Carlos a quick interview. Carlos, could you take us through what happened out there, buddy?
Well, I mean, I was already running in the back, but that's kind of by design. I just don't want to get in the way of anybody while I'm trying to get the charter for next season. And I made a pass, and the car's feeling great. And all of a sudden, I went into 3 and 4, and the car just bobbled. and I tried chasing it up because I've noticed in the practice if I fight it really hard, the car will just overcorrect itself and go at first into the outside wall, and I didn't want to get a tally at least this early on in the race, so I just tried fighting it, and I was able to get it down low, but then it started spinning out towards the inside of pit road, and by the time I even tried to fight that, I was already head first into the barrels. And I didn't think I hit it hard, but I immediately took a tow. I didn't want to bring out the caution, and when the car arrived, I had about 36 minutes of required repair, about 5 minutes of optional. So I'm not done. My race is done essentially, but I'm personally not done. Gonna wait it out, sit here, think about what I've done, take my time out, and
I think Chad's trying to get a hold of you there, Carlos, make you an offer.
What's up?
Yeah, there you go.
Chad's trying to get a hold of you and make you an offer.
Chad's trying to...
Might make it to.
We need a race control.
Admitting. Yeah, we're race control right now.
Yeah, I'll do it.
I think you have admin abilities.
There we go. Now Carlos is race control. So you got promoted while we were restarting here. But we appreciate it, Carlos. Enjoy, I guess, race controlling. It could be fun.
I'll need somebody to give me race control abilities because I don't have admin.
We will get you a hold of those as soon as we can.
Sounds good, man. But yeah, I'll be back out there once Robert comes back and my time is repairs are done.
Sounds good, man. Well, unfortunate for you, but we appreciate your help on the race control thing. And we have been demoted, Zach. Unfortunate.
Oh no!
Well, I did
Up front,
admonish Chad for making a decision. Even
Yeah. What was that about?
I should have told him we
what
quit.
happened there?
We quit, man. Didn't give us power for even one call.
Literally, it was the meme. 0 days without a incident. 0 days without having our opinion overruled before we could even voice it.
Yeah. Jonathan Cutlip did retain the lead on the restart. Gavin Hibbs jumped into second with Ethan Stanley falling to third. The battle is there for fourth between Justin Wadsworth and Matthew Wheat. They are side by side for that fourth position. Wheat's working the inside lane. Wadsworth up to the top in the sixth car.
How about, I know you talked about him a little bit already, but Zach Rogers in that sixth position in car number one, just behind this side-by-side battle. Pretty strong showing to start the night for him.
Mm-hmm. Rogers is one of the guys who runs really well at these tracks. When you have to save the tires, that's a Zach Rogers type of race. He can really do wonders in these kind of endurance-style races. One thing I do want to clear up, Dave, do we have any stages? I know we don't have the race info, but...
Chad did the pre-race talk, and he did not mention anything about stages, just said the halfway point, 175.
All right. There you go. Full distance race just with a halfway point.
Yeah, a little bit different than most of our full distance races, and I was even before we went on air and before you jumped into the booth here, David, I was chatting with Huck. I was like, well, those stage points, those are going to be pretty useful for somebody, and then Huck informed me, no, that's not a thing tonight, Zach. You should do your research.
We don't know why, but
I can't really fault you for not knowing. I didn't know either, and we usually have them on the full distance races, but hey, what are you going to do?
You know what you're not going to do is get stage points.
Yep, apparently not. 3 wide back in the field a little bit here as the front group has singled out. Jordan Owens, Ty McIntosh, Josh Clark, Nick and Delicato all racing pretty sportily for about 20th as Weeks goes for third. This is immediately singled out as soon as I called to it. Trey Holmes, Nick and Delicato, now the cars side by side. They like to fan out in 3 and 4. We got about 4 or 5 different lanes from all these different drivers back here.
And it's so tough once they get side by side because you've talked about, the transitions between the different degrees of the progressive banking and how upset the car wants to get after a few laps into a run. it's really treacherous once you get into side-by-side racing here. Fortunately, the tires are still on the good side at the moment, but this could be really tricky when you're in these packs like this.
And keep a note, right, of which drivers you see on the bottom and on the top, and I think it'll provide us some detail later on, right? Jordan Owens running that top lane almost exclusively here. Josh Clark running the top lane. Are these guys on the top going to burn their tires up? Will we see the 16 and the 28 falling back, 20 or so laps into this run once those tires wear out? I think it's very possible.
It is certainly very possible. And, well, the funny thing is, now I think for Ty McIntosh, the problem is he's trying to be smart and trying to save those tires, but you can definitely tell by the body language of that car, he feels like he's a little held up behind the 88 at the moment. He'd rather at least get around him, and now he will have a chance to at least try that.
I'll tell you, Trey Holmes, that's a car that's saving for the long run, right? That's a car wrapping the bottom, not trying to push the issue up top, not trying to get too much here on the 3-star 88 car, planning to be there over the course of a 100 lap green flag run. And right now pacing on the bottom, giving up a little bit of track position, but given the fall off, I think you can make up some big time ground during a race like this. I do not think that passing will be as difficult as it often is in this next gen car. As Josh Clark just whacked the wall down the back straightaway, no harm, no foul on the 28. But to my point, I think you will be able to make passes in this next gen car, especially if we get some longer green flag runs.
Well, I mean, think about how many positions you might pick off just watching guys slide out of turn 4 once we get 30 laps into a run. You won't even have to try to pass them. They'll just remove themselves from contention. But the flip side of that, of course, is you let a guy by and then he gets loose in front of you. That could be the end of your night if you're not careful. So it's always a tough balancing act, right? Because I can't tell you how many times I've let a guy go 5 laps into a run thinking, well, he's burning up his tires, I'll pass him later. And then you get to him 20 laps later and he's hanging on for dear life, but he is not returning that courtesy.
Definitely something you run into from time to time, both in the elite racing league, but a lot of different racing in general, right? I mean, especially modern racing, there's just the returning of courtesy is not nearly as widely accepted as letting someone by, as Nick and Delicato now hunting after Josh Clark on the bottom. A moment on the back straightaway for Ryan Gable. I just happened to have my camera on him there. 0-1 car went for a little slide. Nick and Delicato almost whacked up into Leighton Norgard, and these tires are starting to go. It's funny how we can kind of time it out and see just when these guys are going to start to lose grip a little bit. Lap times are up over the 25-second mark already. Oh, goody. Sideways off of the corner there. And yeah, just like I said, these guys are starting to define the handling on these cars, starting to see who burned their stuff up already. Some guys have migrated to the top. Seen Corey Abbott, Ray Bracey jumping up there. I think those guys are giving it a little more, I think, right now to try and work through this traffic. Then you're seeing a guy like Nick and Delicato and Trey Holmes work the bottom of the racetrack. Those tend to be the guys that I trust to be saving their tires.
And the other thing too is what lane you're running on the track can also impact how a car handles, right? If you have a car that has, you've burned the right front off of it, you're going to have a really hard time wrapping the bottom. Now, obviously, we've heard more issues about the right rear. Sometimes that means, again, the bottom's not good to you because you can't get to drive off the bottom of the corner to hold off a guy on the outside. But it can also mean, especially you get right up against the fence trying to get on the gas, you might, it steps out on you and then you're in the wall. It can really... That's something you have to constantly battle at these tracks with high tire wear, is knowing how to move your car around to account for that tire wear. Right.
And I think running the top at Iowa can be negative to your right rear tire, but if you're driving in the car very hard on that right front tire and kind of balancing out that wear, you'll ultimately get a little bit less wear on the right rear and you'll feel better about the handle of the car. And that might be the case for some of these guys that are trying to wrap the top, is they're hoping for, see Trey Holmes getting loose right there, they're hoping for not any sort of slide on the right rear tire from that transition on the bottom of the racetrack, and then they can kind of be smooth up top and keep the momentum up and try to drive on the right front of the right front tire before they get into the right rear to utilize on corner exit. And a little bit of mind games, I think, and also an attempt at picking up track position, right? That's what a lot of this battling back here is for. Ty McIntosh into the wall.
Ty McIntosh into the wall. And, talking about, again, handling, tire wear, tire management, all the things that come up at Iowa, again, that progressive banking. Sometimes if you have a car that just does not get along with those transitions at all, especially as you get on older tires.
Who is in front of these guys?
That's Seth Rawls.
It's unfortunate we're not race control anymore.
I wouldn't say that. We'll take a look at the Mark Ribbles replay machine, see what happened here. It looks like we're going to get another self-spin here, David. I think we could have made this call too.
Yep, I think you can give the tally to the 25 car pretty safely, Carlos, and move on from there. And unfortunately, this one brought a caution out too.
Tough. Okay. Well, right here, I guess, is where it's going to. Sure, that's a tough one from the old iRacing administrator, though, because
right,
we've definitely seen some more dramatic incidents that did not result in cautions, but Seth Rawls has got to get the tally on that one, I suppose, because it did bring out a caution because iRacing said so.
Yeah, we didn't really give out other cautions. Worth noting that Chris Wright, who did not pit, did save a set of tires by not pitting there. He did not go a lap down. He remains on the lead lap. The saving of the set of tires works out for the 9 car. He will get his tires back, and we're.
How much does it work out, though?
He did lose all his track position. It's something that may or may not work for Chris Wright. And what we're seeing now is the split strategy. We're seeing Scott Crump, Josh Adams, and a few other cars staying on the racetrack. Ryan Schold is another one. Josh Clark is another one. Staying on the racetrack with, 15-lap tires? That's going to really shake up the field and potentially create some chaos here on the restart.
Race control here. I want to quickly interrupt this broadcast to bring a special announcement. Tally to 25, self-spin.
Oh, beautiful.
You're doing great, Carlos.
Let's just see if we can get one of the other drivers in there to provide admin privileges to Carlos. That's what we're currently dealing with on the other end. But there's Scott Crump staying out. And Dave, do we have any more sponsors to provide an ad for, or should we maybe do an ad read?
Let's do the Whiplash ad. Here we go.
Of sellout crowds, 3 years of edge of your seat action, 3 years of jaw-dropping finishes. Worldwide Technology Raceway has rocked the world of NASCAR, and now NASCAR is giving us another reason to celebrate. The 2025 NASCAR Cup Series Championship playoffs are coming Sunday, September 7th, 2025. Just when you thought the racing couldn't get any more intense, now every single lap matters. One wrong move could be the difference between elimination and being crowned the king. The Enjoy Illinois 300, the Confluence Music Festival, the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs, and for the first time in 15 years, the NASCAR Xfinity Series on Saturday, September 6th. Don't be on the outside looking in. See history being made in your own backyard. Go to www.raceway.com for the hottest ticket of the year.
We're back.
And we're back with the 1 to green. Scott Crump will inherit the race lead by staying out. The front 8 are all out on about 15 or 20 lap old tires, Zach, and we're splitting strategy. Guys are trying to save a set of tires. Guys are trying to get some track position and maintain it. I don't know how much this is going to work out for Scott Crump, Josh Adams, Ryan Schold, Nick Indelicato, Josh Clark, Ty McIntosh, Michael Goodman, and Johnny Thomas, but I am very interested to find out what will happen, because it might hold up somebody such as Jonathan Cutlip, who's dominated this race, and it also could result in some kind of an incident, which might take out some of our contenders. So this could be chaotic.
We'll see.
Pace car is off. Scott Crump leads him to the restart zone, gets the green flag, and picks up the gas pedal on the 90 car. He will take off and shoot away. Jonathan Cutlip drives to the inside of Michael Goodman, 3 wide. They're going to be 3 deep, several rows as Michael Goodman backs up to the middle lane. Stanley's now holding up Chad Frankenfield, who tries to jump to the outside. Johnny Thomas is now stuck in the middle. Gavin Hibbs trying to take advantage in that 95 car. He and Jonathan Cutlip working through the traffic together.
Ooh, that's tight. 3 wide there between Cutlip, Hibbs, and I believe that, yes, that was Josh Clark. Cutlip really digging on the bottom side right now. He's got to get up in front of Gavin Hibbs to get into the 4th position.
Yeah, Jonathan Cutlip is on a mission right now. And we do have a car around.
No caution. But Andrew Rucker had spun. I believe that was out of turn 2, but no caution. We'll take a quick look at the replay here. And that car just gets out from underneath him, and then once he's on the apron, no bringing that car back. I don't think it was too terribly out of shape until he hit that transition to the flat of the apron, but that was all it took.
Josh Adams did take the lead away from Scott Crump to pick up a lap lead for the 22 car, which is hunting for a charter. While we're watching this, 3 wide behind as Jonathan Cutlip takes over second. Ty McIntosh, Justin Wadsworth, Ryan Schold 3 wide. McIntosh clears by Schold. The fresh tires of Wadsworth and Ethan Stanley work through on the bottom.
I think if you're one of these guys that stayed out that last stop, you almost, I don't want to say you want the caution here in the next couple of laps, but you want it before this tire wear becomes a huge issue. You don't want to fall back. You don't want the run to go so far that everybody else can afford to go ahead and come down pit road with you. You almost need it to come out at a time where you can truly stay on this alternate strategy, but get on fresher tires. And right now, I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but I'll be honest, some of them are holding up a little bit better than I expected as it stands right now.
Josh Adams did just lose the lead last lap to Jonathan Cutlip. He'll now lose second to Gavin Hibbs. The car that is holding on a little better than the one that I think Zach's talking about, Nick Indelicato, driven away from his teammate Ty McIntosh. He's gotten around Scott Crump. 10 cars putting together some pretty good lap times, despite having the 10 to 15 lap older tires. That's a pretty impressive drive right now. Whereas it seems like Crump, McIntosh, and some of these other guys are kind of holding up the cars in front. Adams and Indelicato have been the ones that have been able to hold off and kind of run pretty competitive laps.
And certainly that can go back to, how did they manage that over the previous run before our second caution? Did they kind of keep this in mind, keep it in the back pocket, knowing, hey, if we get this caution, maybe this is a chance I can buy that set of tires? Certainly right now seems to be working out okay for Nick Indelicato. He's chased back down Josh Adams. He's got to go after the 4th spot here.
Nick Indelicato just ran a lap in the 24-second bracket, which is the kind of lap times the guys on tires are running. Well, he might have been pushing it a little too much. Might have been that 10 car.
All that work to get up to the 4th spot. Now he has fallen back to 6th, and he's got Ethan Stanley to his outside. That's probably not going to stick for Nick and Delicato. Indeed, Ethan Stanley does complete the pass now, side by side with Chad Frankenfield. And you know that time Nick was probably really careful on that throttle. That's not going to help to win a battle on track either.
Yeah, now he's under attack from Tyler Fody, and you notice as soon as this 10 car got a little bit loose, got the tires just a little bit hotter, right? I think the wear kind of kicked in a little bit, and Delicato now falling back, kind of the same pace that we're seeing Scott Crump, Josh Adams, and these other cars fall back. So the 10 car is on that, the difficult strategy and in the difficult spot of having to hold off cars with those older tires, but it is like we said, right? How much does this gain you in the long run? We're going to see it with like a Chris Wright, who's already made this strategy work and picked up a set of tires on the field. It's something that can be only seen later in this race. Once we get to 7 or 8 sets of tires put on the car, that Chris can be a lot more aggressive. Scott, Josh, Nick, they'll all be able to be a lot more aggressive late in this race with their tire strategy. And speaking of aggressive, here comes Delicato 3 wide on Josh Adams.
In the middle between Josh Adams, Ryan Gable. It looks like he's got to at least be able to get in front of Adams. Still side by side with Gable as they battle just on the fringe of the top 10.
Yep, good battle there between Gable and Delicato, but Gable gets through. Now here's another Hornet's Nest. Ray Bracey on the bottom of the racetrack. You've got Scott Crump in the middle, Josh Adams up top. 22 car is starting to fade even faster than Crump and Delicato. That car really starting to show the wear. Bracey, I think, is going to get clear of Scott Crump here. Justin Vandermar will be the next car on tires to get through. Delicato just got door slammed by Jordan Owens, and Delicato's racing really hard to keep those spots.
And now he's got to have Ray Bracey jumping to the inside while he's still trying to gather up the car from his slide in turn 2 after that door-to-door contact with Jordan Owens. Ray Bracey picks up that spot, moves into 13th.
Good run early on for old Bojo in the 7 car, just behind Leighton Norgard and Jordan Owens. Oh, well, just say that. I'm going to stop talking about him. Jordan Owens and Leighton Norgard are right in front of him. They're doing great. Jordan has had a really strong season. We talked about the points a little bit, but Jordan Owens keeps stringing together really impressive results, and with an elimination style format in this playoff looking ahead, I think there's a world where some crazy things happen, some guys get taken out by various circumstances, and Jordan Owens advances and has a chance to go snag a win to punch his ticket into a round of the playoffs he's maybe not anticipating.
It's been a really interesting season for Jordan Owens, and we've talked about him a lot because this is exactly what he's done all season. Just keep it clean, hang out around the top 10, log up those points, get those strong finishes, keep yourself in the playoff contention. And again, another example of that tonight for the driver of the number 16 right now, battling with a Leighton Norgard for the 11th position.
There we go. We got race control going back online. Is that Robert, or is that still Carlos? Because it is past 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern.
I believe it's still Carlos.
Who cares
Robert's
about
loading in now.
It's real time. As we look at the single file battle between the whole of the top 10 here, all the way back through Owens, Bracey, and Vandermarl through the top 14. The battle for 15th. The guy on tires is Michael Hosak. He is stuck behind Ryan Schold and Nick and Delicato at the moment, which is alleviating some of the pressure on those guys up front, and it's going to allow them to kind of race their race. And back here with tires battling against snow tires, they're still 3 wide.
Talk about that 24 car at Michael Hosak where he was bottled up. He was also bottled up behind that 22 car for a while as well. Now he has moved to the bottom, but boy, Ryan Schold and Nick and Delicato were awfully close to each other coming off of turn 4 that time. And you have to appreciate Michael Hosak for trying really hard to be patient here, but I'm sure he's getting a little frustrated at the moment that it seems like no matter where he goes, one of these cars on the older tires seems to be holding him up.
Yeah, it seems that way, but
Yep,
there goes the 24.
yep, he got tired of that. He was nice about it, but there was just a slight little move there across the rear end of the 10 car. Clearly, his patience is no more.
Yep. Next to go by the 10 and the 4 is Trey Holmes and Chris Wright, the 88 and the 9 car. We'll see how those guys, I think, respond to the 10. But those guys are the 10, the 22, these cars that are on old tires. They cannot be enjoying themselves right now. Those cars have to be very squirrely, difficult to handle, and overall a handful. And you see Ryan Schild already right there getting into the wall. Definitely starting to lose the handle, even more so than already that we've run these, 10, 15, 20 laps in this run at this point. It's certainly going to be tough for these guys.
It is. And now that we've kind of passed the point where I think you can reasonably say if you pit, everybody else will stay out. Now you're kind of in the box of like, well, the longer this run goes, the worse position I'm going to be in. But at least if we get a caution soon-ish, I'll have that set of tires like Chris Wright has, right? You're trying to talk yourself into, okay, this isn't the worst thing. If you can stay on the lead lap, it's not the worst thing. But the longer this green flag run goes, the more and more precarious this is going to be for some of those guys on older tires. I believe, yeah, we've got a
battle for second.
Second, Matthew Weeks and Gavin Hibbs move Matthew Weeks up to the second spot.
Matthew Weeks to second. Worth noting, we've had some movement in this top 10. Justin Wadsworth's up to fourth. Chad Frankenfield has risen to fifth. The 15 car looking fairly sporty tonight in a position where he's basically got to win the race. Now, I will note it's going to be somewhat difficult.
Oh!
As he's right on the back bumper of Justin Wadsworth here. Given that 5 car, as it feels like has just pulled out another gear. Monday, he was worlds faster than the field at Kansas in those Grand National cars. And tonight, Jonathan Cutlip has 3 seconds on Matthew Weeks here and in a normal long run. So
there you see the advantage over Matthew Weeks. Looks like Chad Frankenfield has completed the pass on Justin Wadsworth for that 4th position.
And then behind Wadsworth, you've got Ethan Stanley and Tyler Fode, who it feels like have just been biding their time the entirety of the race so far. Effectively. We haven't seen Tyler Fode make a move to the outside once in this race. He is focused on tire saving in that 40 car.
And so far that's paid off for him. He's worked his way up to the 7th position. He hasn't been involved in any skirmishes or anything like that. There you see Ethan Stanley in the 6th spot. Fode in 7th. Behind him, Jesse Racimus in that car. Good run for him so far tonight.
I was just going to say, let's give a call to Jesse Racimus. This is a darn good run on pace for Jesse. I would say he probably would describe his season as turbulent. Something that, he was been certainly hoping for a better run. I think last year he won the season finale, and I think it was like his first top 10 finish of the season or something like that. But, Jesse's a fast driver. He won the Truck Series championship last year. He is, he's one of the contenders who can make noise in this next-gen car, but he has yet to be able to find the stability and the results. And obviously he's working with the Do Good Motorsports group this year, and this is one of his best runs of the season. The Daytona 500 comes to mind as a better run throughout the race, but Jesse's having a good one tonight.
You mentioned that Daytona 500 finished 10th in the season opener at Daytona. He has not been in the top 10 since.
Yeah. So this is a good pace night for Jesse Racines. Definitely has a top 10 car as of right now, and I think that he would certainly take this staying around.
We have
The
a
caution is
caution
out.
in turn 3. I believe that might be Casey Hatch that has gone around. We are
And
on
it
board
is.
with Casey Hatch.
Casey gets it turned around, and I think you and I both could tell you what this one's going to be.
I have a pretty good hint. Oh, he's right on that transition too. Yeah, that's and again, kind of like we saw with Rucker earlier, it wasn't completely out of shape until it clipped that apron, and then once that happens, you're not gonna bring that car back.
Mm-hmm. Is there any way we can go on board, Dave, with Casey? Maybe from the front straightaway onto the transition of turn 1? So just from the start finish line forward into turn 3 here.
So
I
when we
wanna-
talk about the transition,
Yeah.
you can see those seams in the racetrack, right? Where there are the painted lines, but you can also see those solid black lines where the seams in the pavement are. And as you travel across those, that's also where the banking is changing in degrees of steepness. And you can tell there, he had the right side above that line, the left side below it. And that's just really, really challenging. You really kind of want to be either above or below those lines in a situation like that, middle of the corner. It upset the balance of the car, it gets loose. And then he tried to catch it, but obviously it changed again when he dripped onto the apron, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah, and I appreciate you reading my mind on that one. I wanted to provide a similar feedback, right, of exactly how this Iowa racetrack works, and you just absolutely nailed it. So that's perfect, and it just goes in to enhance the difficulty of running this track over and over. Now, one name you'll note is no longer in the top 5 and is rapidly dropping down the running order. That will be Ethan Stanley. That car has disconnected once again. We saw it at Pocono. I think we've seen it more. It's frustrating for Ethan Stanley, and luckily for him, he's got 3 wins on the season, but that's something that can take you out of running in the playoffs if that happens. So hopefully Ethan Stanley is able to get this disconnect issue resolved. And Ethan's had this issue a couple of times this year. Another guy who's had the disconnect issue is Jonathan Cutlip. Hopefully it doesn't come into play down the stretch and into the playoffs. And Jonathan Cutlip and Ethan Stanley have both been able to overcome those issues. But race changing is one of the faster cars. The second place qualifier has issues early.
And let's mention, talking about the playoffs, to go in a slightly different direction. You hinted at it in the intro, but let's take a moment to really think about these playoff standings. And a couple of guys that entered the night on the good side of the cut line are not in this race tonight. Justin Fortner, he's right on the bubble. He is not in this field tonight. Tate Lytle, another one. I don't think that's a huge surprise, being a West Coast guy. Earlier start for us this evening. Certainly not conducive to a guy like Tate Lytle. He is not in the field tonight. Fortunately for Tate, he has a couple of wins, so not terrible for him, but that's still, for the guys trying to get in on points, that's got to move him closer to the bubble or maybe south of the bubble and open up opportunities for some of these guys we see below the cut line right now.
Nick Massey's also not in the field either. He's
David Tucker.
Points. And Tucker has won at Bristol, but he's 6th in points, not in this race tonight as well. So definitely some room for guys to move into this playoff and, gain points on the cut line. And it's especially, I think, a big night for guys like Johnny Thomas and Jordan Owens, who, if they simply survive, run a top 15 finish, and gain spots on the cars that you're talking about, I think it's an even bigger benefit for them, because if they can simply maintain where they're sitting right now, they can get into this chase. And then, it's as we've mentioned, right? I mean, anything can happen. Talladega's in the chase. It's kind of all holds barred once you get there. But, guys like Johnny Thomas and Jordan Owens have to make sure they're there. And So far tonight, both have been rock solid. I think Johnny stayed out on that last run, but now he's got that extra set of tires we've been talking about that, these guys are, I think, all going to have to gain on the race, right? You're going to have to work this race backwards. How many times can you pit? How many laps can you, afford to go without pitting? Chad Frankenfield is the first car on new tires in 10th place on this restart. So this restart, we see Cutlip, Weeks, Hibbs, Fody, Zach Rogers, Justin Vandermarl, Michael Hosak, Trey Holmes, and Seth Rawls all staying out on old tires to try and gain a set down the stretch. Pace car off just now. Jonathan Cutlip leads us back to the restart zone. And we are green once again. A little bit of a stack up on that outside lane between the fueled up boys behind Tyler Fody. Everyone is okay, but it's going to be Chad Frankenfield looking to take him 3 wide.
Yeah, Chad trying to get the most out of those tires at the moment, but having a hard time finding somewhere to put that 15 car at the moment. Hoping maybe something opens up here. He didn't take it all the way to the top, though.
At the bottom, there will be 3 wide with Chad Frankenfield involved, but this time it's Justin Wadsworth and Ryan Gable. Nick and Delicato just sent it 3 wide, even 4 wide on the bottom, back behind.
Yeah, here's where...
Oh, there's the 10 car sideways.
Yeah, and I think the 15 got a piece of the wall on corner exit there, but still digging, working that high side, trying to get around some of these guys that stayed out.
Bracey in the wall. We're okay. No caution so far.
There you see 3 wide. Ray Bracey, a little bit of a slide there. He kind of caught that transition on the high side, but managed to hang on to it. This is a look at 4 wide here for Nick and Delicato. He backs out of it, probably a good thing, but he's trying to work his way through the field. They're still got to try to be 4 wide.
Jesse Racimus now 3 wide on the bottom, underneath 2 guys with older tires. Racimus through, I think he's the 4th car through on new tires, is that 70 car.
Definitely a lot of hectic moments for these drivers at the moment, negotiating the different tires, the different strategies. But right now,
they're 3 wide for 5th.
This is Wadsworth on the bottom, Tyler Fody in the middle, Zach Rogers on the outside.
Rogers and Fody on old tires, Wadsworth, Gable, and Racimus with new tires working through. The 6th car to the bottom with the fresh rubber. This is the 2nd car on tires. First up the road is Chad Frankenfield. He's hunting the lead from Jonathan Cutlip in turn 1.
And I don't think Cutlip's got to put up much of a fight here. He's got to let those fresh tires go on by on the inside and settle into 2nd and try to keep this gap they have on this herd of cars behind them.
Yep, and they're battling really hard. This is allowing Chad Frankenfield to get away into that clean air. Justin Wadsworth really struggling to put away Matthew Weeks and Zach Rogers. He will finally do it here on the front straightaway. Move Wadsworth up to P3. Ryan Gable working to P4. Jesse Racimus following the 0-1, trying to get into P5.
There you see Racimus to the inside of Weeks as they work their way down the backstretch into turn number 3. He's got a Leighton Norgard behind him. Norgard probably wanted to slide through the door there, but Matthew Weeks closing it at least for now. Leighton Norgard will still be able to get to the inside going into turn 1.
Yep, Norgard also on those fresh tires, 12 car, working through past Matthew Weeks. Now it'll be Nick and Delicato's turn to try and jump through on the 4 fresh tires, and behind him is Ryan Schultz. So the only guy right now that's not fully falling like a rock is Jonathan Cutlip, but he's starting to. Wadsworth and Gable already through. Racimus working on Cutlip right now on the outside lane, and you're seeing these guys start to fall back with these older tires. Just behind is Chris Wright and Ray Bracey taking advantage of Tyler Fody.
There you see Ray Bracey behind Zach Rogers. Chris Wright to the inside of Rogers. Wright in the 9 car, Rogers in the 1. Wright's got to get a pretty good run down into the corner now. He's got to be battling with Matthew Weeks. He's got to be up to the 9th position if he's able to clear Matthew Weeks here.
right should clear and does. Bracy now working towards that top 10 spot. And Scott Crump following Ray Bracy's footsteps here. They're coming up on Jonathan Cutlip. So the old tires really starting to crater here in this, fourth, fifth run of the night. Delicato now working on Jonathan Cutlip. Up front, you've got a battle between Jesse Racimus and Ryan Gable for the fourth spot. Or actually, it's the third spot. Move Jesse Racimus into third. 70 car really working towards the front well on this set of fresh tires.
It is, and now he is right there with Justin Wadsworth. That'd be a battle for second if he's able to challenge. And of course, we've talked about tire save. Oh, no,
3 wide back here for 10th. And Racimus does get second, but Jonathan Cutlip's up on the high side. Ray Bracy and Scott Crump are side by side underneath him. They make it through.
They made it through. Matthew Weeks is yelling at somebody about pinching, which I can understand can be very painful, especially if you get pinched on sensitive skin.
I think he's yelling at Andrew Rucker, if I had to guess. But Weeks is on very old tires, so I guess I'm not sure what the fuss is about. 11 cars going backward.
Well, I guess the concern there, if you do get pinched on the bottom on old tires, is at that point, the wreck would ultimately be Weeks' fault if he were to lose control underneath, but you're hoping to get a little more room in that situation, I suppose. That don't put me in a bad position to get us both in a wreck.
I think you're right. As here comes Ray Bracy up the outside lane, trying to go around Chris Wright. Scott Crump going around Ryan Schold in the background. Big battle here from 6th on back. 6th is the 10 of Indelicato. Right now challenging Indelicato for that position. And he's got it. No, maybe not.
Well, yeah, a little bit of a surge there from Nick Indelicato. That was almost looked like a super speedway move there to side draft to get alongside. Doesn't quite make it stick, but kind of surprised to see that run off the corner there from the 10.
Yeah, he got to the gas pretty well, and Scott Crump behind Ray Bracy got to the gas well. Challenges alongside the 7 car, but Ray to the outside of the 10 car washes up in front of Ray Bracy and shuts the door on the move for 7th.
However, that's got to still get him alongside Indelicato and box in Scott Crump a little bit. Crump is able to get in front of Ryan Schold, and I think here is where Ray Bracy's got to be able to get around the outside of Nick Indelicato. Scott Crump has got to do the same. And now I was gonna say it'll be interesting to see here what Ray Bracy does as far as is he content to ride behind Chris Wright and get back on the bottom, or does he want one more spot?
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm thinking about here is we watch Indelicato kind of get streamlined. It almost reminds me of kind of an inverse of how Martinsville used to be, right? In the old days when you could actually pass, somebody would get shuffled up to the non-preferred lane and they would just go to the back until you could find a spot to slot in. Nick Indelicato just kind of ran into that where, I don't think saving tires on the bottom is one thing, but it's definitely not intentional to just get passed 4 times.
You might be right about. Whoa, Scott Crump way up the hill. Is this by design?
I think so. He got a pretty big run on Ray Bracy.
A run he got down the hill. Yes, I think that's exactly what he wanted to do. He absolutely wanted to get that run down the hill, get the run down the front stretch. He's got to be able to get around Ray Bracy and pick up that 7th spot.
Well, we got the camera on Ray Bracy. I do want to note he's the only rookie in this race. And I don't think we've been keeping up with it as he does get a little bit loose on corner exit of turn 4. I think he's going to lose a spot to Schold and Adams here, but we've got some rookie points, and Mike DeWalt not in this race. Hanneman and Fody haven't been in one since early in the season, and Ray Bracy's kind of looking like your rookie of the year right now.
Yeah, I think this is a couple of races in a row now that we have not had Mike DeWalt in the field. So Ray Bracey looking pretty good for that Rookie of the Year honor as they stand. I know that's not his focus, right? The Rookie of the Year would be a nice accolade to have, but he's far more interested as an open driver, racking up those points and try to earn a charter for next season. And he's doing pretty well in that regard as well, considering he missed the first 4 races of the season. ABC projects Ray Bracey Rookie of the Year.
Is that an election joke as
Matthew
the
Weeks.
caution is out? Uh-oh. Maybe he should have been mad about the pinching.
Well,
I was just going to comment. Oh, my. Trey Holmes with some big damage on the 88 car.
Oh!
That's right in front of the race leader.
No!
Oh, no!
We've discussed at length. Okay, well, let's take a look at what happened here before we react to that. Weeks loses it on the apron underneath Michael Goodman, and he's going to come down the track and get hit by Trey Holmes. And then we're going to see Chad Frankenfield coming right as Matthew Weeks fires it up to get going, and absolutely nowhere for the 15 car to go. From the race leader, he got Justin Wadsworth too.
Dude.
I wish we were still race control.
How many tallies do you give him?
All of them.
I'd give him 3. He'd be gone right now.
He'd be done.
That's 1 for Chad,
I
1 for.
I know he'll probably watch this and get really mad at me, and it's fine. But I mean, one of the things I heard him say was, "I can't see." Well, right here, you're looking at the whole field coming. I don't know what you can't see. You clearly saw the 15 car coming. I don't know what we're doing. The 6 car, I sort of understand. I wish he had held the brakes. There's no reason after a wreck to collect 2 separate cars like that. Absolutely no reason. I'm not. Yeah, we're going to see right here. He's got to be like, I'm going to get turned around. Unless the 15 isn't coming around the bend, but even then, you've got a relative. You've got a display telling you how far away those cars are. I have a heart. Yeah, you can see.
Carlos is coming.
Carlos is coming. And then
you can't turn horizontal on the track and then just sit still in the way of everybody. Matthew Weeks is a very, very good race car driver. He's been in so many races. He's won championships. He is not. This is a mistake from one of the best, but the best are still they can still make mistakes. That's a bad mistake by Matthew Weeks.
And the frustrating part about that is frankly, well, at Iowa you have airport runways of apron space. He could have easily turned right instead of left to accomplish the same means and not wreck 3 race cars. I'm sure he was hoping it would spin a little bit more, rotate a little bit more, and he wasn't going to be that high up the racetrack. But I don't handle that situation.
Even if Weeks technically loses the lap, iRacing will give him that spot back. And you can also get the lucky dog. One guy
right. There's 217 laps to go. I'm not even worried about the lap.
Yeah, Ethan Stanley's about to get back in the lead lap. It's not a matter, and we see this a lot from these elite racing drivers. They need to fire it up and spin it out in front of the leaders. We saw it 3-4 times last week at Martinsville.
You mentioned it a lot last week, and it didn't. That was kind of why you mentioned it, was your fear that something like that could happen. Fortunately, it didn't really last week, but this time it has, from a really unlikely source.
Right. It's just it happened. It happened I was the car pulling through at Atlanta in the trucks in this elite series. I'm just not sure what it is. Maybe it's some level of impatience coupled with some level of aggression, where I have to get back in the race even though I'm spun out. You will get back in the race. Your spot, once that caution is thrown, is locked up. You're going to be back there no matter what. If there's even the slightest chance you're going to get in front of the field and wreck into somebody and cause further damage, you need to avoid it at all costs. And we just see a lot of recklessness from a lot of guys in this league. And, especially given that it took out the leader, and it doesn't matter who the leader was. This time it happened to be Chad. That's frustrating. It's frustrating to see because Chad had actually run a pretty clean race, but he's the guy who's on the outside looking into the playoff.
Well, with all that said, we have 1 lap to green. 215 laps ago, it'll be 214 when they restart. We now have Ryan Gable and a Leighton Norgard on the front row?
Yeah, we got Ryan Gable, Leighton Norgard, got Josh Adams and Chris Wright there in row 2, Ray Bracey and Indelicato in row 3. Bracey messaged me. He said they're going to have to save a set, at least one, right? Chris Wright saving that set earlier in the race. He's saving another one by staying out here. These guys are going to be slow. There's going to be faster guys on tires coming from the back of the field here, like Jesse Racimus, Justin Wadsworth, and Jonathan Cutlip. Pace car is off. Let's see what happens here. Lap 136. We got about 40 to the stage. Ryan Gable to the race lead over a Leighton Norgard, and it's Nick Indelicato from 6th on the restart, making the move to the bottom.
Yeah, I think it's got to be tough. Everybody's worried about saving a set for later in the race. It definitely makes a lot of sense, but that's also how you end up in a situation like we just saw with Matthew Weeks getting loose in the first place. And now here we go. We're looking 3 wide between Chris.
Oh my!
They backed out of it. It's even worse further back.
Yeah, that's where I was looking. I had my eye on Jesse Racimus as he tries to work his way through the cars that have stayed out on this caution. Racimus, Wadsworth, Cutlip, all in a line on the top of the racetrack. They were 4 wide at one point. They're back to 3. Here comes Racimus to the middle of the track between Brent Jones and Jordan Owens, going after Josh Clark.
And if he is able to clear Jordan Owens, he should be able to get down to the bottom here, and that's going to make it a little bit easier to pick off some of these guys, run in the middle and top lane. But behind him, still 3 wide. That's really tight between Ryan Scholden, Justin Wadsworth, and Tyler Fode. Had thoughts of really forcing the issue there, thought better of it, but there's still 3 wide in front of him.
Josh Adams is loose in front. Chris Wright and Adams have spun on the front straightaway. No caution yet.
I don't think it's got to bring out a caution. They spun off the track.
And they're 3 wide for third, right in front of Racimus. There's no way they don't wreck here. Adams Crump into Racimus. They save it. Everybody's still going. Bracey up to the top. He gets in the wall. Clark in the wall. And they make it through without bringing out the yellow flag. And Ty McIntosh is now running second. What is going on?
Man, this is really frenetic right here. As we watch 3 wide again, that's Crump on the bottom, Jesse Racimus in the middle. Leighton Norgard falls back, but now here they're going on Nick Indelicato's in the middle.
Racimus clears Indelicato. That's a big move for that 70 to get under the bump on the outside lane in turn 2. All this is happening behind Ryan Gable. He has just scooted away with those older tires, and he's made light work of it. Now Racimus is back in the middle working against McIntosh. They're just going to get the 70 loose in front of the field.
How is nobody going to hit him?
Oh, no! Cutlip into Schold. Several guys got on the binders wonderfully there. 7 car, 25, 83, all able to dodge incident and ultimately spread this field out. But Jesse Racimus being very aggressive with the fresh tires, trying to make as much advantage as he can in this race, that he has a lot of pace, and I think maybe just got a little bit over aggressive, got loose there at corner exit, and ultimately hands over the control of the race with the fresh tires to Scott Crump in the 90 car.
Meanwhile, Jonathan Cutlip to the inside of Andrew Rucker. That's a battle for the 4th position. That bright yellow car, 3 wide behind them. That's Gavin Hibbs, Nick Indelicato, Justin Wadsworth.
I already know we're going to, guys are going to come back and watch this one later, and they're going to be like, man, you guys missed my battle with so-and-so. It was such a good battle. I'm going to be like, we saw so many battles, there's nothing we could have possibly done. Up front, lead change. Ryan Gable losing that. Oh, Rucker's head on the wall. Caution flag is out. Andrew Rucker slams the wall. Oh, he's going to collect Jordan Owens. I think there was contact that got Rucker sideways
I
into the
think
wall there.
You're right. We'll take a look at the Mark Rebel.
But no,
machine.
I think this is going to go to the 64. That car is already sideways, and
Oh yeah.
then he hooks it back trying to correct it. And then let's see if anybody else got into him here. 28 through. Bray gets through. Corey through, and Owens is the first to collect him. Michael Goodman also with some damage. And that's so unfortunate for Jordan Owens.
Jordan Owens with a meatball.
Oh,
Chad Frankenfield still with a meatball from the incident earlier. Rucker with a meatball.
Chad's 12 laps down.
Yeah, that's a tough one for him.
Ruckers, yeah, this car is very wounded. See if Owens can get that thing fixed. Chris Wright's disconnected.
Yeah, Chris Wright had broken the left front of his car with that incident that did not bring out the yellow.
Josh Adams is going to be a boon for him. Here's that incident. Wright was definitely reacting to Adams in front. And then, yeah, the impact with the inside wall is what does in the 9 car. Oh, maybe not. Maybe he was loose before that. Yeah, he was way loose before that, and then Norgard gets the 9.
Well, that
Wright or
help.
Adams?
Chris, right.
Oh, wow. Racing deal given out for Andrew Rucker's incident there here on lap 145. Trying to see. Oh, yeah, Jordan Owens did get the meatball flag fixed. So 16 car will still be in the race. We might want to go on board with Ray Bracey, who was the first through on the outside of that incident. If we can, Dave.
Okay.
This is going to happen in front of him, and he is going to make an executive decision to roll to the top of the racetrack, which no one in front of him did, but I think that was his only move, and it pays off for the driver of the 7.
I believe he had Ty McIntosh to his inside, so sometimes...
Would it have been Seth? Ty ran into Rucker.
No? I don't know.
Oh, Johnny Thomas. That's
Johnny
what it is.
Thomas.
But a good evasive action by all 4 of these cars right here. Clark, Thomas, Bracey, Vandermarl making evasive action around the 64. Ultimately, the only one to strike him is Jordan Owens. I don't think Jordan had any way of avoiding that. And the field dwindling a little bit. Did the 91 car get back in the lead lap now? That is my question. He did.
We have time
Ethan
for a quick
Stanley
read.
has officially been back in the lead lap. And while we're pacing under this, what is it, Zach, 5-lap yellow, let's do a couple of ad reads.
All right, this is the Belly Up Sports Cup Series, the Internet Sports Bar. Sports commentary via podcast, forums, and articles on topics ranging in nearly every sport. Not your usual sports site. Check them out on X or at bellyupsport.com. Blue Egg Marketing. Rev up your business with Blue Egg, your marketing pit crew. Turbocharge your lead generation with experienced drivers that can navigate the competitive track to connecting with your customers. With Blue Egg, you're always in a pole position, leading your brand toward victory lane. Don't spin your wheels, accelerate success with Blue Egg, fueling small businesses to win big. Worldwide Technology Raceway. Worldwide Technology Raceway, of course, is a motorsport racing facility in Madison, Illinois, just east of St. Louis, Missouri. Features a 1.25-mile oval hosting the NASCAR Cup Series, NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, and the NTT Car Series. They have a 2-mile infield road course used by Speed Tour Trans Am, SCCA, and the Porsche Club of America. There's a quarter-mile NHRA sanctioned drag strip that hosts the annual NHRA Camping World Drag Racing Series Midwest Nationals event. Finally, they have the Kartplex, a state-of-the-art karting facility. Finally, 4D Racewear, makers of the ultimate sim racing shoes and custom apparel, designed for sim racing by sim racers. 4D sim racing shoes are custom engineered to connect racers to the pedals in a way no other racing shoe can.
We're restarting.
Okay.
We are.
So I was
locked up on
reading.
it. Scott Crump to the race lead here. We'll finish up those sponsor plugs on the next caution. I'm sure there'll be another one.
Racing gloves for your feet. Good enough.
Yep, they are the racing gloves for your feet for 4D Racewear. The 4D Racewear guys didn't show up for this race tonight. Richie Hearn and Chris Stouffer, they are not here. Unfortunate. Scott Crump, the race leader here. The Lake Norman guys are. Tyler Fode's finally made a move here, 150 laps into this one. He's worked his way up to second. Jonathan Cutlip is third. Think that's probably the fastest car here. When everybody was on the tires, Cutlip had pulled 2 or 3 seconds out on the rest of the field. Ryan Scholz currently fourth. Ty McIntosh has worked his way to fifth.
There you see Justin Wadsworth on the inside of Ty McIntosh. Zach Rogers trying to also get around Justin Wadsworth.
I'll make a complaint of mine in discussing the strategy here, but iRacing is strangely limiting on the tires. So when you have all your sets of tires, these guys have, 9 sets of tires total. 8. They started with one on the car, so 8 sets in the pits. A lot of them have used 4 sets. But a lot of them have also used tires for 10, 15 laps at times, and then come in and change them again. Those tires should be available to these drivers. Brian Gable maxed the outside wall. That might have been a damaging incident there for Gable, but I think this 01 car is one of the cars on those fresh tires. I think you should have access to those fresh tires, or those old, used, scuffed tires, because they're already in your pit. We know you've got them. If I want to slap on my second set that I only used for 15 laps, I should have access to that late in the race. That's my complaint.
Well, we saw earlier this season where that actually was an issue with Chad Frankenfield at Bristol. He burned through those sets. And then it got to a point where he said, well, my race is done. I have no more sets of tires. And like you say, there would still be 36 tires sitting behind his pit box in real life. They'd all be used. They wouldn't have the stickers on them still. But it's not like they'd say, oh, well, I guess we're just
McIntosh is around in turn 3.
Oh, he clipped somebody. Is it not going to bring out
It's
a caution?
not going to be a yellow.
Oh, that's tough.
Who did he clip? It's the real question. It's like Michael Goodman.
Goody got trying to squeeze by on the outside.
That car was just evil handling through 3 and 4 there. Loose on entry, gathered it up, then it snapped loose again.
Unfortunately, yeah, he's going to have to pit. I'm seeing a meatball for him.
Oh, wow.
This is going to be a tough pit entry with a broken car. Yeah, you could see he did make it, but you could see the right front, not quite. It's rolling at least. We've seen worse, but it's not happy.
No, tough break for Ty McIntosh. He had worked his way up to second there on that green flag run when that was so chaotic. Back up front, Ryan Gable, the car with fresh tires and on the move. Gavin Hibbs is also on the move, it looks like, in the 95 car. Gable working that outside lane. We've only seen a couple of drivers use that to full effect tonight. Gable, one of them. Scott Crump, his teammate, one of the others. That outside lane's getting used, as the middle lane, but nobody's really using that lane closest to the wall. 01 car just used it to generate this run to try and pass Jonathan Cutlip. It's not going to work. He's going to fall in behind the 5 car.
Yeah, as far as, when it comes to different drivers, different personalities, different mindsets, Ryan Gable for sure is the Kyle Larson of Elite when it comes to, there is not a high line Ryan Gable has never liked. Mind you, he's about 27 cup wins shy of Kyle Larson and a cup title, but running the high line, Ryan likes to do that.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the high line lovers. He'll go up there when nobody else will. He and Chris Wright are the 2 that I think are maybe the most, and Gavin Hibbs. Those would be my 3 that I would pencil in as high line lovers. Back 3 wide back there for one of maybe our big comeback stories of the race. That blue and white number 91 car of Ethan Stanley He has worked his way back into the top 10 after disconnecting from the server. This is the second race that Mr. Ethan Stanley has disconnected from the server and then driven back into the top 10. Also, last week, he did it after getting wrecked by his teammate Scott Crump.
Well, you said that, and he almost ended up on the apron and wrecking and starting the whole process over again. So, you know, fortunately he did not do that, but definitely a sketchy moment for the driver of car 91, as you were saying all those wonderful things about him.
He won't give up, too. Ethan could spin it out right here, and I would probably pencil him in for a top 10 finish instead of a top 5, which is what it's looking like right now with all this comeback pace. Is Scott Crump paces in front of Tyler Fode, Ryan Gable trying to make use of what appear to be some fresher rubber. He will get around Jonathan Cutlip and make it a Lake Norman 1-2-3 here, and then slice underneath teammate Tyler Fode, try to get on the bottom of the racetrack and get around the 40 car.
You know, one thing I was going to mention earlier, and I was rudely interrupted by a caution. In a situation like Ryan Gable, we've talked about the transition, how difficult that can be on the handling of these cars. If you run that high line in 3 and 4, you know what you don't have to deal with on corner exit?
The transition.
You just stay above it the whole time and keep on trucking.
Yeah, let's go on board with Ryan Gable and check out the beauty of the Iowa Speedway as he's inside of Tyler Fode right now. Now Fode clears by Ryan Gable, and we'll see the outside lane from the perspective of this 0-1 car.
Yeah.
Looks like somebody's been around here in turn 3.
Of course, we go on board. He starts bottom feeding on us, but yeah.
There is, I don't know if you can see it, but right there in that top to the right of Ryan Gable, there was a gigantic bump in turn 1. That's why you really don't see guys running the outside lane in turn 1 here at Iowa. You go through this bump, it feels like you're on a roller coaster. You drop down and then bounce up, the car gets all unstable. Oh, Jonathan Cutlip just about clears up in front of Ryan Gable, and the reason he's not up on the wall, Jesse Racimus in the 70 rolls by.
Yeah, right there you can kind of see the bump is everybody having a little bit of a panic moment. I don't know about, it seemed like the broadcast was fine, but for me and for several of the drivers, there was a pretty significant moment there where everyone kind of blinked out, and fortunately it didn't lead to an incident, but I know on my computer's end, there was at least 5 or 10 seconds where there was no longer a race at Iowa Speedway, and I think some of the other drivers experienced that as well.
Hopefully the iRacing service stays online. We need everything working as well as we can get it. As Ryan Gable fights with Jesse Racimus for 3rd place behind Scott Crump and Tyler Fode here on lap 170. We're coming up on the stage here. Crump and Fode are really working hard to maintain control of this race at the front of the field, because the halfway point will be delivered here in about 4 laps. Last week we saw Ethan Burrell stay out for that. Burrell not here this week. So I think what Pro Edge only brought Josh Clark to the track tonight. Pretty wild. I guess Matthew Weeks, but he's out of the race now. Ryan Scholl loose off corner exit right there. Behind as well. But up front, it is Scott Crump continuing to lead, approaching it. Lap 172 on the board. See if Scott Crump and Tyler Fode can try to control this race and pick up that stage win. And remember, it's the end of lap 175. It's the halfway point in this race, and it is the end of the halfway stage, and the winner will get a playoff point. That'll stay with him for the entirety of the playoff. Ryan Gable's in the wall. He saved it. He held it out of the wall.
I think running that high line as much as he has is starting to pay the price for Ryan Gable. You see him slip back to 5th, and he might have a hard time holding off Ethan Stanley for that spot. Meanwhile, Jonathan Cutlip has inserted himself in this battle for the top spot as we close in on the halfway mark.
This race is as wide open as I can remember a Elite Cup Series race since we've been doing it together. Everybody is right on top of each other right now. Early in the race, Jonathan Cutlip had a big lead. Now he's struggling to pass Tyler Fode. Behind him, Racimus struggling to pass Ryan Gable. Scott Crump has a full car length advantage right now. It might not even be that. It's Cutlip to the inside. Fode working to the outside. They're coming to 1 to go in the stage. Cutlip almost into the side of Scott Crump.
next time by, we'll give out a halfway point. Scott Crump in the catbird seat at the moment goes to the bottom to defend Jonathan Cutlip. They're closing in on a lap car.
Or no one. Cutlip trying to get to the outside. He's gonna try to pin Fody up there. Cutlip now works to the outside of Crump. They'll be side by side to the stage at the line. Jonathan Cutlip makes it work and gets the stage point.
Wow! And by the way, they were for about fifth. They were 3 wide as they were also trying to get around Jordan Owens.
Yes, he just about got out of shape there underneath the 91 car. Nick Indelicato has entered the fray for this 7-car battle for the lead, but Jonathan Cutlip has flipped a switch. This 5-car all of a sudden has just shot out of a cannon. He's 0.3 faster than the field right now. That car is suddenly on rails. It's like Jonathan Cutlip just flipped a switch there in turn 3.
This is a spin out of turn 4. You saw the smoke and the tire marks. That was Josh Adams.
Adams gets on the binders, fires it back up. He will rejoin the field in 22nd place with some very unhappy Goodyears. No, Leighton Norgard also went for an adventure down the front straightaway.
Looks like he avoided hitting anything, but it got loose.
That
Out
was
of
out
turn 4, through the grass.
That was out of 10th place for Leighton Norgard, the ARCA Series champion for 2024B. Up front, Jonathan Cutlip has taken a sizable lead over Tyler Fody. Ethan Stanley has rolled into 3rd. Scott Crump up to 4th now, with Jesse Racemius sitting in 5th.
And we're kind of in that magic number range. We've gotten 30 laps or so into this run. That's where we've traditionally seen over the course of this race. That's when the cars start to get ill handling, when the tires start to give up. You start to see who has protected those tires, who has taken care of those tires, who has burned up the good in them.
Well, guys, I'm seeing starting to work their way forward. We got our eye on one right now. And I think it's because they have been taking care of the tires. They changed tires last caution and are just now seeing the benefits of that because this run is actually pretty long. Johnny Thomas is really starting to come to the front. You see him here next to Ryan Gable. He's chasing down Jesse Racemius. This car is pretty quick right now. Johnny Thomas running 25 ones while battling. That's a pace quicker than even the race leader for Johnny Thomas, and he changed tires last time through. We're seeing it with a few more guys back in the field. Ray Bracey, Zach Rogers, they're starting to, put together lap times faster than the race leaders. They changed tires last time through. Gavin Hibbs just hit the wall. I'm thinking a long run is going to be really beneficial for the guys who changed tires last time and needed to go long on those tires because they need to save a set for later in this race. So Johnny Thomas, Bracey, I want to say Nick Indelicato is one of those as well. Guys who have saved their stuff. They're going to be in a really good position down the stretch here because they'll have the extra set, and also they'll have the track position because they've had the fresh tires for longer in this run.
Johnny Thomas working his way around Scott Crump for the 4th position.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. We're talking about Johnny Thomas. He made 4 passes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's how much those tires are making the difference at the moment. Jesse Racemius will move into the top 5 as he will also get around Scott Crump.
Oh, that 70 car definitely feeling the effects of the various slides he made early in this run. But Crump was for sure pushing a little aggressively to try and keep the race lead there at the stage and ultimately falling just 1 spot short. But now you can see he's starting to really pay the price for it and fall back into the clutches of the back end of the top 10.
And here's where you're going to start really seeing, especially off turn 4, those cars going over the transitions on corner exit. That's when the car is going to want to step out. Turn 2's not as bad on corner exit, but you do have to worry about what you just saw with Joshua Personette right there, the lapped car. Is especially, it's it's weird because you look from overhead, the track looks fairly symmetrical, but on 1 and 2 you can't run the high side the way you can 3 and 4 because of the bump where the tunnel is, the infield access tunnel. Even the middle lane can be tricky, but the top is almost non-negotiable because of the severity of that bump where the tunnel is. You have a lot more lanes at your disposal in 3 and 4. The problem that creates in 1 and 2, especially with the tighter exit of the D shape being on the turn 2 side, on top of you have to run at least lower, it creates a greater tendency to push on corner exit towards that outside wall.
And then you overcompensate, right? When you're in that push, you try to turn the wheel harder and harder to the left to keep it from going up and hitting the wall while you're on the gas pedal, and ultimately creates a slide to the inside, which is like a tight that snaps loose. And that's where you've seen a lot of drivers go sliding through the front stretch grass because they're feeling a push, they're hanging the wheel hard to the left, and then all of a sudden the car snaps to the left and snaps loose on them.
It's the easiest mistake to make, regardless of track or car, on iRacing in oval format, right? You overdrive corner entry, you put a ton of wheel in it, and then you get to corner exit, and suddenly that wheel reacts, and now the car's loose. And you hear a lot of times newcomers will be like, man, this setup sucks, it's tied in, loose off. Chances are the setup is not tied in, loose off. You're just overdriving the entry and creating the loose off on exit.
Right.
Obviously different kettle of fish tonight because of now we're 30 laps into this run. By the time we get 50 laps into a run, nobody's going to know where the car's got to go when they drive it into the corner from one lap to the next. But if I had to give one piece of advice to almost any iRacer, keep that in mind the next time you think your car is tied in loose off.
You had kettle of corn right there, and you went kettle of fish. I'm a little sad.
I zigged. You thought I was gonna zag.
Speaking
of zigging
Ryan.
and zagging.
Ryan Gable loose on corner exit. I'm guessing exactly what you were just talking about there, Zach. Right, with what Ryan's still dealing with it. This 0-1 car is out of control. This next gen car has a tendency, when you heat up the tires, to get completely out of control. You almost have to baby the car, drive like a second slower than you otherwise would to cool the tires down, because otherwise you'll just wreck. The car gets so skatey once you heat the tires up in such a way that Ryan Gable has right here.
And we've talked about it all during this run, how much Ryan loves to run the outside line. That's probably the price, right? Of course, he's got to go right back to it because now he can't trust his car to go over those transitions. It's having a hard enough time when he isn't. But man, that's when he's probably got some of the, outside the guys who didn't pit for tires last time, he's probably got some of the worst tires in the field right now.
Yeah, definitely. And you're seeing the, like you said, right, the price that you pay for being aggressive early in the run, fighting for a stage win. Ultimately, that price hasn't come quite as badly for Scott Crump. It hasn't, but Crump has lost a spot to Justin Wadsworth, right? He's lost spots to a number of different drivers in this top 5. It's just not nearly as bad because Crump was running the bottom.
We've got, it did not bring out caution, but Josh Personette spun to the inside of the track out of turn 2. He's back rolling again.
Tough break for Josh. He's had an eventful day. I think he was involved in one of the earlier incidents as well. There it is. I think he's just going to be loose on corner entry right here.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can bring up Ty McIntosh as we catch back up to the race lead here. Ty, it's David in the booth. We got to stop talking to you like this, buddy. I think this is like 2 or 3 weeks in a row we talked to you from the infield care center.
Yeah, definitely not ideal.
What happened out there, man? You had gotten up to, I think, second.
Yeah, no, I was trying to make the most of tires and to try to have an extra set there at the end. I mean, I think that's the only shot that I have to make the playoffs. Definitely is now. Is to try to win. I don't even know if we're going to be 25th in points after this. Yeah, no, just doing what I could on tires, and 28 on fresher tires just barreled through me entering 3 and 4 and didn't even give me a chance to make the corner. And then being on old tires, I think they were 30 or 40 laps old at the time. I mean, I have no chance of saving the car. Got into Rucker, the yellow, before he was loose. And then again, nothing I could do. So, yeah, no, just not the way that this 35 deserves to be up there, man. Everybody that powers it, and I feel like the drives that I've put in it doesn't deserve to be finished in 27th on the record. So,
Alrighty, man. Well, any shout outs for us here before we send you off tonight?
yeah, everybody, Shifty Sports. Be sure to check out our shop. I think we're officially launching that. You want to get some Shift branded merch? It's there. Numbers by Joe. I ran the throwback again, hoping for some good luck. We're not running it anymore. It's 2 weeks in a row. It's got killed. So yeah, that 3-wide TV, SR Design, Hibbs Design. You guys are putting on the show, and Chad for running the league and keeping the crazies in line.
All right. Well, we appreciate it, Ty, and good luck the rest of the regular season here, and hopefully we can stop meeting you like this.
Yeah, hey, if you commentate on Sundays, I'll meet you there. But here, nothing.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Thank you.
Ty McIntosh, driver of the 35 Shifty Sports Ford, and Shift's got a couple of guys up in the top 10. One of them's getting hunted down by one of the faster cars on the racetrack right now. Zach Rogers is putting together some really good lap times in that one. I think he's Mountain Man Motorsports. Dave can probably correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, there you go. Zach Rogers, good relationship with Robert Hill, running Mountain Man Motorsports in that one car. He's putting down laps in the 25.3, 25.4s. For reference, Jonathan Cutlip just ran a 25.5. Tyler Foote ran a 25.4. Like, the guys in the top 10 are all 25.5, 25.6. He's chasing down in Delicato. He's pulled away from Seth Rawls by 2 seconds. Pretty solid little run here for Zach Rogers to get back up into the top 10.
And those are the nights that, make such a huge difference. We've talked about it over the course of this regular season. Now with just one race left after tonight at Daytona, the nights where you could take a bad night and salvage some points, those are the ones that make such a huge difference over the course of a season. Certainly, that's not necessarily something that matters to Zach Rogers. He's only run a handful of races with us this season, but those are the kind of nights that, if you are battling for a championship, make such a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if we're talking a championship type night for anybody, it's Ethan Stanley, right? I mean, Ethan Burrell not here tonight. Ethan Stanley and Tyler Foote ultimately probably going to be running for that regular season title. Stanley could have been done when he got kicked out of the race via the disconnect. Persevered, got back in the race. He's up to third. We've seen it strike a couple of times. Yellow flag is actually out to ruin this long green flag run. But this is the kind of night Ethan Stanley's going to need. And Gavin Hibbs was struggling mightily on this set of tires, and it's ultimately not terribly surprising that he ends up being the one to bring out the yellow. And it started well back on corner exit of turn 2, I believe. Actually, no, he's loose all the way through this corner.
So yeah, he's loose through. This is 1 and 2. Almost gets the wall. Gathers it up.
I don't think he's even still got it gathered up, and then he hits that apron transition. Woo!
Now I did see. Oh, okay. So there's where Josh Clark got involved. I'd seen him spinning after the caution came out, but when Hibbs went up the hill, he had to make the left turn in avoidance, and that's when his car lost control.
Yep. And as we watch Josh Clark avoid Gavin Hibbs and
Looks like
slide to the inside,
too.
Yeah. Everybody on pit road for tires this time.
Yeah, that was a really long run. You're not gonna buy anything by getting a set of tires here. You want to come down pit road and bolt on 4 fresh Goodyears at this juncture, no matter what your strategy is.
Yep. Now is the time, right? And I think the aggression level may kick up a little bit more as we reach we're coming up on 100 laps to go in this one. Tyler Fody off pit road. Can he beat Cutlip off pit road? No, he cannot. Jonathan Cutlip retains the lead. And then it's a big stack of guys. Johnny Thomas, I think, slid through his box. He's going to fall all the way to 10th or so.
Of course, the scoring pylon will update shortly. You see the guys who were a lap down now pitting. And that will allow one to cycle through.
Michael Hosek missed his box. I think that's what might have happened there.
Okay. So he is, yeah, you're right. He is a lead lap car, but I'm guessing you're right. He probably missed his box.
So that'll re-rack the top 10 for you on the left side pylon there. Jonathan Cutlip, the race leader. Tyler Fody, second. Ethan Stanley, third. Justin Wadsworth, fourth. That's 3 Lake Norman cars, 2 through 5, with Scott Crump in fifth. Then you got Jesse Rosimus in sixth. Nick Indelicato, seventh. Zach Rogers, eighth. Ray Bracey, ninth. Johnny Thomas is in 10th after pit stops. He was fourth before, so not a good stop for the 83 bunch. Seth Rawls is 11th. Ryan Schold is 12th. Justin Vandermarl is 13th. Ryan Gable is 14th. Leighton Norgard rounds out the top 15. And we might as well finish off the rest of the lead lap cars here. Give them a shout out. Brent Jones, Corey Abbott. They've both been hanging out at the back end of this top 20. Josh Adams has had an adventurous day, to say the least, in the 22. Gavin Hibbs, who brought out that last caution, is now 19th. And then Hosak off pit road is 20th. Trey Holm will be 21st. He was fixing damage all through this caution from getting involved in, I believe, who's been with the involved in? Matthew Weeks.
So the challenge at this point for these drivers, now that we're down to 140 laps to go, we're kind of back in what I would call the range of a normal Elite Cup Series race. We're past the halfway mark, right? Typically, when we're not doing these full distance races, they're somewhere in the range of 50% of a standard Cup Series race distance. So you're kind of thinking, okay, we've done the hard part. It's time to go racing. The problem there is you've still got the same tires that are going to wear the same way that they've done all night. So how much can you really force the issue? You've still got to go another 140 laps.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, I mean, we've seen the attrition already. We have 21 cars out of the 35 that started on the lead lap. Only a handful of those, even the lap down cars, are still on the track. So you've made a lot of ground as far as if you're points racing, if you're trying to get into the playoff, if you're trying to get one of those charters, whatever your story may be, you've put yourself in a good spot. So you don't want to take any unnecessary risks that undo the evening for you.
Yeah, especially on this restart. And I think you'll see that from a couple of the guys, maybe not at the front of the field, right? Tyler Fody's going to battle for the race lead with Jonathan Cutlip for sure. But I think you're going to see guys hunting for points, guys sitting, Johnny Thomas, who needs just to have a good finish. I think Johnny Thomas is going to take it easy on this restart. Pace car is in. Jonathan Cutlip starting on the outside lane. He gets a good jump, pulls Justin Wadsworth alongside his teammate Tyler Fody. They'll battle side by side for second into turn number 1, but it is Fody on the bottom of the racetrack that gets the advantage on Wadsworth on corner exit, but he's not able to clear.
Here comes Ethan Stanley. I don't think he's going to get alongside Justin Wadsworth there, but he had a pretty good run through turns 3 and 4. And I'm sure he's got to try to throw it to the inside here and challenge for that third position.
Wadsworth side by side with Stanley. A little damage on the right front of that 6 car from the contact when Chad Frankenfield bounced off of Matthew Weeks and sent him sliding down the track in front of Justin Wadsworth. Definitely affecting the 6 car a little bit. It looks like the 6 still very competitive, but it's not quite the same as it was, and Ethan Stanley goes screaming by on the outside.
Speaking of that 15 car, you got a glimpse of it as the camera was panning by. Chad Frankenfield back on track after effecting repairs to the 15 car.
Chad sees Ty McIntosh out, Casey Hatch sitting on pit road. A couple of spots he can go get, and really, I think Chad would very much have liked to be in this race remaining. I think this is a spot where Chad could have really picked up some points on that cut line, and as it stands, from the race lead, I don't think we really talked about it much when he was leading this race, but he had scooted away and was in a really good spot. He was kind of off strategy from the 5 and the 40. Ultimately, that whole group has been brought together and sorted out, but Chad was in a good spot, and Justin Wadsworth's fourth. He was running second at the time. I think you could safely pencil Chad into this front group had that incident not happened, and Chad will take that one to the bank. He's certainly the type to tell you, I was running good. Well, unfortunately, Chad, we have to confirm he was running good.
And unfortunately, that's kind of been the story the last few weeks with Chad Frankenfield, right? He's had pace, but for one reason or another, whether it be getting involved in somebody else's wreck, or at Martinsville, he was literally leading when he self-spun out of turn 4. We've gone over ad nauseum the woes at Bristol. For one reason or another, it just has not gone Chad Frankenfield's way these last couple of weeks. Sometimes it's self-inflicted, sometimes it's no fault of his own. The net result is the same.
Yeah. Ryan Schultz is back to Ray Bracey up a lot. Ryan Gable, Josh Adams worked their way through the 4 car. Now Bracey gets around Ryan Schultz, and here comes Brent Jones. As we shift from talking to Chad Frankenfield over to the current battle on track, how about this 89 car, Brent Jones? And at risk of jinxing the ever-loving crap out of Brent Jones, a mighty fine run for Brent running up here in 15th.
Definitely a good run for Brent Jones in that 89 car. And he's closing in on Ray Bracey here. He might be trying to pick up another spot as he's working that middle lane. Gets the run out of turn 4.
I will say, I talked about guys being really conservative on this restart. I think Ray was conservative through the last run. I think he's probably eyeing doing that again. Just seeing Ryan Gable, Josh Adams making passes, working the top side. Brent Jones looks like he's playing to more of the aggressive route, trying to take advantage of this top 15 track position that this 89 car has. Make some passes. Brent's ultimately a pretty clean racer to drive around. He'll attack when necessary. He'll ride when necessary. You can trust when you're around him to make the right moves. And just behind, Michael Hosak going around Gavin Hidd. This is the best battle on track right now. Worth noting, Ethan Stanley got around Tyler Fode. Fode is backed up a bunch right now. That 40 car is saving the tire.
We've said that a lot tonight. 40 car saving tires, and so far as it has worked out for him. And he's in the 3rd spot right now. It's not like he's mired back in 10th or 15th saving tires. He's able to keep semblance of track position doing it, but certainly not pushing as hard as these top 2 at the moment.
Yeah, interestingly enough, right? I don't think I've seen Tyler Fode leave the yellow line in this race, and we looked back at that big battle of cars, and I'm wondering, as we saw Josh Adams and Ryan Gable and Ray Bracey and Leighton Norgard all jumping to the outside to go around people, I'm kind of sitting here thinking, if we get a 100+ lap run here, running the outside lane might be kind of a detriment to the tires. And you're watching like in Delicato sitting on the bottom, falling back. Ryan Schuld was kind of falling back. At what point are some guys over pushing the tires? At what point are some guys saving well? I'm curious here, and I would really like to see this race go green for a long time so we can get some of those the reward for those guys who saved their stuff.
It'll be 125 laps to go next time by. Here we see a side-by-side battle. That's Jesse Racimus and Justin Wadsworth for the 4th position.
And we've called out Jesse Racimus a whole lot tonight, so we'll stop acting like it's a surprise. But this 70 car has been right there all night long, in the top 10, in the top 5, contending for this race win. As he goes for 4th on Justin Wadsworth, this is a mighty fine race for Jesse Racimus, and one to be celebrated regardless of the end result. But as you mentioned earlier, top 10 finishes have been a bit of a struggle for the 70 group as the 90 car loose off turn 2, or turn 4 rather.
Yep, got loose on the corner exit there, lost ground on the 6 of Justin Wadsworth, and now he's probably going to lose the 6th position to Zach Rogers. There you see Rogers able to clear Crump going into turn 3.
Another car that's definitely biding its time. Zach Rogers has been very good on those long green flag runs, and this, we're kind of eyeing up another one. There's not a whole lot of battling on track right now, not a ton of side-by-side racing. These guys are setting up for a green flag stint. I think that favors the one car of Zach Rogers if we can get a hold of a green flag run.
Speaking of a green flag run, this particular run, we touched on it ever so briefly. Chad Frankenfield has worked his way up to the 26th position by passing those cars that are on pit road with damage. Next in line would be Michael Goodman in about 40 laps. Plenty of time to get those 40 laps in over the remaining 121. And then who knows at that point, obviously nobody else really within reach after that for now, but 121 laps for other people to fall by the wayside. And Chad could pick up those spots as well.
Issue for Chad is Michael Goodman is pacing on track about 2 cars in front of him right now, so I don't know that he'll be picking up that spot on Goody.
That's, I suppose, a fair point.
But Chad is maximizing the points at this point, and we did cover it, right? A spun race car reoriented itself on the racetrack in front of what was at the time the race leader, Chad Frankenfield, and this is a car on the outside looking in terms of the points. He needed a good run tonight. It did not go his way. He will get the bonus point for leading a lap, but at the end of the day, you need more than a 26th place result. And even if he ends up +1 or +2 on that 26th, that's just not going to be enough to cross that threshold and get him into the playoffs at the moment. Looking here at the train of cars running from 3rd on back, Tyler Fode has really backed this group up. He's 5 seconds off of race leader Jonathan Cutlip right now, and this is kind of what we saw from Cutlip early in the race, where he just really flew away from everybody else. As we start to approach 20 to 25 laps in this run, I do wonder if this 5 car is going to give up at all, but Cutlip is just putting together some really impressive laps, and once again, I've mentioned a couple of times, but Monday he was really dominant. Anytime there was like a long green flag run, he just shot away by 3, 4, 5 seconds. At Kansas, that was only a 100-lap race, and he was pulling out 2, 3, 4 tenths a lap on a fixed race. Like, this is a fixed race, but with a lot more variance in the tire wear and stuff. I'm less surprised that someone has a sizable margin with the fresh, with the clean air. But this is a mighty fine result for Jonathan Cutlip. He has been very dominant today.
And of course, behind him, you see Ethan Stanley, and as you've talked about several times tonight, he's had to even be in this position. But he's keeping a relatively level playing field with Jonathan Cutlip at the moment. I think Cutlip is maybe just a hair quicker, but Stanley's really the only one keeping touch with Cutlip at the moment.
Worth noting that we're going through a fairly sizable change in track here, where we do put rubber on the racetrack in iRacing. You can see kind of the darker area a little bit on your screen, but we are also, if you notice, the clouds have covered the racetrack for quite a significant amount of time over this run. The track temp was 103 at the start of the race. It is now 94. So my guess is that not only is, I think the track coming to guys like Jonathan Cutlip, who can be a little more aggressive on corner exit, but it's coming to the guys who are a little better on the short runs, right? Where there's not nearly as much tire saving required, which I think is throwing a bit of a wrench in the plans of a car like Tyler Fode. who's hoping that, the guys in front of him back up big time over this run. And, the tires, they're not, I think, going to wear quite as fast with 10 degrees of heat not in that track.
That's a good point for sure. And the funny thing is, you talk about those clouds, and absolutely, they're playing into the hands of the guys who have pushed the tempo a little bit, but at the same time, they can just as quickly go away, and suddenly you've got a sun-baked racetrack all over again. The other thing that will be a factor is, of course, the progression of time
Johnny.
of day. Oh, Johnny Thomas out of turn 2 has gone for a spin. He's off the racing surface. That's probably not going to bring out a caution.
And it does not.
Tough break for Johnny Thomas there.
He was running 8th at the time. That will give a top 10 position to Josh Adams behind him. As Adams clears by Ryan Gable, and you saw it right there, loose on the bottom of the racetrack and then clips the apron, and that spins the 83 car out. Tough break for Johnny, but he falls back to 21st, last car on the lead lap. Ultimately, 21st place result would not be what Johnny wants, but it could have been a lot worse for a guy who is up in the playoffs, and he's got about 100 laps to get some of that track position back.
He does, but it's probably going to be hard to get it back with this particular set of tires after going through the spin cycle out of turn 2. I have to imagine he'll be hoping for a caution brought out by somebody other than himself here in the near future.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's not going to help him for sure. But maybe he can kick off the pit cycle, try to short pit and gain a little bit of time that way, or find a different way to gain time here and try and get a few of those positions back. So I think he is definitely one of the top 10 fastest cars remaining in this lead lap, but it's going to take a strong effort from Johnny Thomas in order to get there with the spun tires. Looking at the battle for the 12th position between Brent Jones and Nick Indelicato, with Gavin Hibbs looking on. There's been another excursion on the front straightaway. I just noticed the tire marks, and I'm trying to see if we have a culprit. I'm not seeing one on the lead lap.
And I did not see anything on my end.
All right, well,
good talk.
Yeah, someone somewhere probably went for a slide.
Know who you are. Got away with it.
Yeah. And Delicato and Hibbs have both gone around Brent Jones while we cut away. So it's Jonathan Cutlip up front with a dominating performance. Cutlip leads over about 1.5 seconds. Back to Ethan Stanley with Tyler Fode sitting now 4.5 seconds back. And it is now the time where the tire saving should come back to a guy like Tyler Fode. He has definitely not been pushing that 40 car as hard as he could, and you're seeing the time start to tick down up to race leader Jonathan Cutlip. Tyler Fode, I think, has saved the tires. It is now go time in this part of the run, and he is making up time on the race leader at the moment.
And certainly, if you're gonna make it happen, it's time to start putting in the gains, right? It's time to start closing that gap. Especially, you're starting to see Ethan Stanley falling off from Jonathan Cutlip. Probably that 91 car starting to go away on those set of tires. You can at least get to him and then figure out if you have anything for the 5 car.
Mm-hmm. Tyler Fode, it's funny because he immediately got in the wake of the 16 of Jordan Owens. Not that Owens is doing anything wrong by running his line, but you can see it's tightened up that 40. He's not making up nearly as much time as he was before, but he had been 6 seconds back. He's worked it all the way to
Well, throw it all out.
Never mind.
And that's Johnny. Well, I said it didn't need to be Johnny Thomas.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when you do put that heat cycle of a spin on a tire, as we've seen already tonight, it makes you a little more susceptible. Let me guess, he's got to get loose right here, and then he's got to almost catch it, and then the car's going to hit the apron, and it's got to go around. How much you want to bet?
That's exactly what
weird.
happened.
That's weird. It's almost like we haven't seen that 20 times tonight.
Yeah, it's exactly what we've seen tonight.
Chad Frankenfield barely sneaking by.
There's one guy who didn't want to see a car sitting sideways in the middle of the racetrack. It
No
was Chad
kidding.
Frankenfield. Johnny held the brake, waited for the field to slow, then backed away from the field instead of driving into it. I feel like that's worth mentioning. And Johnny does go a lap down due to this and gets the tally. Ultimately, a very bad result for Johnny Thomas, but he didn't compound it and make it worse.
And I have to think, so granted, inside of 100 laps, we know for sure everybody can make it on fuel from here, but I mean, are we really going to have a 100 lap green flag run? Stranger things have happened. If it's going to happen, it would happen at Iowa, but I just think with as much challenge as everyone has had on these tires, I just have a hard time seeing this field of cars hanging on 100 lap tires.
There's one car that I'm not confident in their strategy. It's this one right here. Jesse's, I would have come gotten tires, buddy.
Wait.
Hey,
He's only got
well,
two sets left. He doesn't want to. He had to take an extra pit stop earlier. So.
That will do it. Yeah, so Jesse Racimus runs into the dreaded lack of tires problem.
So to be fair, Dave started off by saying he didn't have any.
He doesn't have any spares. The ones he has are allotted for the rest of the race.
Okay, I thought you said something after that about still having two sets.
He says he still has two sets, but he wants to save those.
So he has spare. You're seeing the contradiction.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. He doesn't have any unaccounted for. So an extra set now, like everybody else.
Not ready.
Everybody else does.
There we go.
He has one less than everybody else.
Okay, those were two very different things, and we need to get that cleared up because I wasn't sure if these tires were going to last 200 laps.
No.
If you can hear anything, that's my cat saying hi.
He has already taken his 6th up.
Yeah.
I mean, now he would be at 7 if he.
And then he'd have just one set of tires for the final 100 laps. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess the question for Jesse Racimus is: do you take your medicine now, or you have to go to the back, or do you take your medicine later and go to the back?
I think given the choice between those two options, he's making the right choice.
Right.
But I'm sure he would prefer to not be in this position at all.
Yeah, I think that's an eloquent way to put it. Is he would much prefer to not be in this predicament.
I don't think anything good comes from taking the tires now and then being the guy who stays out on 80 lap old tires if we get 20 lap shootout at the end of this thing. That's gonna ruin your night even if nobody runs into you. At least this way, it's gonna ruin your next run, but you're gonna get a chance to drive forward to end the race, presumably, to get another caution.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think Jesse could probably budget it with the one set at 50 laps here, and then kind of work it either way if he had come down pit road. But you're playing with fire in that case.
Well,
right? So
did we talk him into it though?
Well, you don't do it now. He's just coming to get out of the way at this point.
Oh, that's smart. Okay.
He's hoping for a couple of yellows to, a couple of 10, 15 lap runs with a yellow, and then get it where he can put one on without necessarily being out of sorts on the long green flag run at the end of the race. You gotta come to a stop though, Jesse. You can't exit pit road.
Well, technically speaking, he did enter a closed pit, but yes,
he'll get that one cleared by race control.
Yes. And now he will exit an open pit and join the tail of the field and not get run over by cars with fresh tires on this restart.
Yeah. But he needs a quick cautioner. He's going to go a lap down. So
we'll
keep our eye on.
That's
Yeah.
the counterpoint. He gave up a lot of track position and some time to avoid getting lapped by doing this.
Right. So he needs a quick yellow. Does Jesse Racimus. Up front, it's Jonathan Cutlip, Ethan Stanley, Tyler Fode, Justin Wadsworth, and Zach Rogers. The top 5. Green flag is out, though. 5 car gets on the loud pedal, gets going. Tyler Fode gets a good jump on Ethan Stanley. He gets to the inside of the 91 car. And will we finally see what kind of pace that 40 car has? Don't think so. He's still backing up the corner, playing it safe, playing conservative. And watching his teammates go by.
And you have to wonder, when is Tyler Fode going to turn up the wick and start adventuring up the racetrack, or is he just committed to that bottom side? Is that where he feels like his car is the best? But meanwhile, Ethan Stanley, is he got challenged for the lead here?
He's trying to. Stanley trying to find a way around this 5 car. He's working that outside line. We've seen it work. We've seen it burn drivers in this race, but Ethan Stanley to the outside of Jonathan Cutlip. He'll take over the top spot. Just behind.
Yep.
Look at this 1 car.
Zach Rogers, Justin Wadsworth battling for the 3rd position. Rogers able to clear Wadsworth coming out turn 4. Now he will set his sights.
Norgard in the wall, big. I think they're going to save it from being a huge wreck. Now Bracy rolls Gable 3 wide in turn 1. Norgard still falling back in the 12 car.
Norgard's got a meatball. He's going to have to get that car to pit road.
Wow. Leighton Norgard with a really strong run today that was in the top 10 for a large portion of the evening. And that falls by the wayside on the front straightaway. I think he maybe tank slapped it, got the rear end, then hit the right front of the wall and ultimately killed the 12 car.
Yeah, that's a tough break for Leighton Norgard. Having a solid run this evening, had stayed out of the chaos for the most part. And unfortunately, all it takes is that one slip and it's all undone.
Norgard hits. Up front, Stanley still leads. Cutlip, and then Zach Rogers has flexed the muscle. He's restarted in, I think, 5th spot, but he's worked his way up to that 3rd spot, and he's definitely challenging Jonathan Cutlip here with 90 laps to go. I mean, you know, Rogers has been really good on the long runs, but he is showing some really serious short run pace in this 1 car. My query is, you know, is he showing too much pace? Is he over pushing this 1 car early in the run?
I just heard Chad Frankenfield reporting he has a meatball. I don't know if that's a flat tire or if he had an incident. Is that him going very slowly on the apron?
Yeah, I think so. Chad's adventurous night continues.
I believe that was Carlos Acosta we also saw going down pit road ahead of him.
Up front, Jonathan Cutlip has not let Ethan Stanley get away. He is keeping that 91 car within arm's reach, and that's ultimately keeping Zach Rogers right on the back bumper of the 5.
And closing in on the trio of them is Justin Wadsworth as well.
Yeah, Wadsworth working his way forward. Ultimately, I think just a little bit further back as Cutlip looking the inside on Ethan Stanley. He's not going to be able to hold it down there. And Cutlip's going to have to be careful about that because Zach Rogers is definitely within striking distance. It could pin Cutlip on the bottom and try to use the outside lane to his advantage and ultimately jump into that 2nd spot if Cutlip's move is a little too aggressive.
That's certainly a danger. We've seen how easy it is to lose ground if you're on the bottom lane. We saw it several times, cars getting kind of like you compared to Martinsville freight trained if they're pinned on the bottom.
Caution flag.
And there is the caution. I am not sure.
Jesse Racimus?
No. He's just destroyed the 70. Oh man.
We talked about the old tires.
Uh,
That's the risk there. We've seen what
man. We talked right before this yellow, or right before the last caution, about what Jesse needed. He needed the quick yellow. No quick yellow, right? Norgard hit the wall, but that did not result in the yellow flag. And then, this was the risk, right? It's where I would think, I don't want to say the better, safer play, but one I probably consider, given the amount of laps on the tires, is you have to take one of those 2 remaining sets. Right, and you just have to hope you can split this run. Hopefully, the run goes 50 or 60 laps, and then you take your last set, and you hope there's no late race yellow, right? And if there is, well, then you just have you eat your medicine, and you hope that there's enough yellows that you don't lose all your track position. But now Jesse doesn't even get to put on either of those sets of tires.
And we talked about needing to get another top 10 finish, and definitely not going to happen now. Just a really tough break.
Dave, did we finish all of those ad reads?
I can finish. Yeah, let me redo the 4D Racewear one since we kind of rushed through theirs. 4D Racewear, makers of the ultimate sim racing shoes and custom apparel designed for sim racing by sim racers. 4D sim racing shoes are custom engineered to connect racers to the pedals in a way no other racing shoe can, and still provide all the comfort needed for double and triple stint. So visit 4dracewear.com and check out the original racing gloves 4D. Now I think that includes everybody.
There we go. Did Ethan Stanley pit? He did. Out of the race lead.
But, I mean, it was about an even split that time. I mean, you could see the front few are some familiar names, but now you've got a couple of guys, Brent Jones, Ray Bracey, Ryan Scholl, that we haven't seen in the top 10 a ton. Ray Bracey a couple of times, but for the most part, these guys we haven't seen the top 10 a ton. And then they've got the people who did pit behind them. But, again, these guys are probably expecting another caution, so they're going to throw on tires then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Ray messaged me and said it was too early to pit. I think he's probably right, but I think all of those guys are now dealing with the set that Jesse Racimus has, right? You've got 2 sets. When do you take advantage of using those 2 sets, right? This is 80 laps to go, and you're maybe thinking you can put one on now and then put one on with 40 to go. Or run 50 laps now and then put one on with 30 to go. Ultimately, it's split for a reason, right? We're right on the edge of that being an obvious choice to come down pit road. Ultimately, Ethan Stanley chooses to pit. Tyler Fode, Zach Rogers, Jonathan Cutlip all stay out. That'll be the divide, right? Where does Ethan Stanley end up? Is he able to carve through these first 10 very quickly, get back to the race lead, and then also pit with those race leaders later when they come down to get fresh tires and stay ahead of them? I think that's the big key, without them also being able to pit that extra time and get the advantage on Ethan Stanley. There's the 1 to green. Worth noting, and a little housekeeping note, Johnny Thomas did get back on the lead lap. With that caution, he got the lucky dog.
Woof, woof.
Back up to 20th for Johnny Thomas. Blade Norgard, who's one of the cars just on the outside of the playoff looking in, he is 22nd. Jesse Racimus is another one of the cars on the outside of the playoff looking in. The result tonight will be at least 23rd and probably back as far as 25th for Jesse Racimus. So not the kind of night that will move you closer to the cut line.
Nick Massey in chat saying it's only a good race because me, Tooker, and Burrell aren't there. SMH.
I would agree with that, right, Nick? As as Jonathan Cutlip and Zach Rogers lead us back to the restart zone. Cutlip waits to the end of the restart zone to get going. It really stacks up everybody there, really, and Ethan Stanley's the first car out of line, trying to make things work on that bottom side. They're 4 wide back there around Brent Jones.
Ethan Stanley on those fresh tires trying to pick off some of these guys. Josh Adams also restarting behind Stanley.
He's got fresh rubber.
He's boxed in behind Brent Jones at the moment, though.
Lead change at the front. Zach Rogers, the race leader this time by. That's, I think, his first lap led all season long. Tyler Fode working to the inside of Jonathan Cutlip up here. Ethan Stanley behind Zach and Josh Adams just about put Brent Jones on the wall.
And Tyler Fode, he hasn't left that bottom lane like you've talked about so much tonight. But right now he's kind of watching these two leaders side by side, trying to figure out maybe that's where exactly he needs to be.
Yeah, and Fode definitely probably still has some pretty good life in the tires. That 40 car left the bottom that last time through turn 1 and 2. He was up a lane, got some run on the back bumper of the 1 car as Cutlip takes the lead back. There's Ethan Stanley up to the outside of Scott Crump, his teammate, pulling along Josh Adams.
Big slide for somebody there. Didn't catch who it was out the corner of my eye, but we stay green. They kept it straightened out.
Look at Tyler Fode making a move on the outside for the first time all race long. He's up into second. Stanley now working to the inside of Justin Wadsworth for fourth with those fresh tires. And Josh Adams trying to work to the outside of Scott Crump for sixth with the fresh tires.
Cutlip able to get out front there, but now we'll see Tyler Fode. Can he close in on that 5 car? We've seen how strong it can be. Oh, by the way, here comes Ethan Stanley. He's up to 4th.
Yep, and here comes Stanley after 3rd. He's hunting for 3rd against Zach Rogers. Rogers made a really good push for the race lead. Ultimately, Jonathan Cutlip able to get back past the number 1. Zach Rogers has really been one of the stronger cars here tonight, and the tires are going to cost him this spot right here, but a really impressive run from Zach Rogers this evening. One of our 2 Napa cars that have had a good run tonight. Odd little fact. The other ones went nose first into the wall for our last caution, unfortunately. So
Ethan Stanley working to the high side. He's got to go after that 2nd position now from Tyler Fode.
Yeah, Ethan's going to get that outside line rolling, and he's the only Ethan on the track tonight. He's carrying the banner for both himself and Burrell. Ethan Stanley into 2nd, and his sights are set on race leader Jonathan Cutlip. Josh Adams is up to 5th. He's going to go after Zach Rogers. Ryan Schold is the next car on tires. He just got around Wadsworth, and then it's Nick Indelicato and Gavin Hidd, 9th and 11th, respectively.
And there you see Indelicato trying to get around Scott Crump at the moment. That would be for the 8th position. Crump going to take the bottom through 1 and 2, leave Indelicato the high side. He'll pull alongside and probably be able to get enough of a run through 3 and 4 to finish that pass.
Yeah, Indelicato working that outside line to perfection. And he does clear by the 90 of Scott Crump, trying to drag along Michael Hosack in the 24, but battle for the race lead. Ethan Stanley to the outside of Jonathan Cutlip, utilizing the fresh tires, and give it to Ethan Stanley, who has made his way back through the field in 10 laps. With that fresh rubber to go back and get the race lead, that was pretty short work made by Ethan Stanley, and now we set our sights on Josh Adams to see if he can make his way by Tyler Fode and Jonathan Cutlip and give any battle to this 91 car of Ethan Stanley.
There you see Josh Adams. He'll go to the high side. Is he going to be able to pull alongside Tyler Fode here? Yes.
Oh, Hosack sideways on the front straightaway. He's going to come back up into traffic. Hosack sideways on the front straightaway and stopped. Oh, there's no caution.
No caution. Oh, man.
That Brent Jones is probably quite thrilled right now. Hosack's moving forward. He's on fresh rubber. That overdrives the corner exit there out of 3 and 4, like we talked about with that transition. It came sliding up the track right in front of Brent and a whole host of cars that are on older tires. ultimately, we get by unscathed. The green flag's still displayed.
You know, Ethan Stanley probably fairly glad to see we're still green flag racing.
Yeah, if I'm the guys with tires, I want this thing green to the end.
I don't know if they're gonna get what they want, but certainly that's what they want. At the moment.
That's definitely what they want.
It would be the longest green flag run we've had. Not that we've had a wreck fest by any means, but I mean, once we get to that 20, 25, 30 lap mark, these tires just become so demanding and so difficult to keep underneath you. It's just, I mean, it's caught even some of the best out tonight.
For sure. And yeah, what they want and what they're going to get, two different things here. Josh Adams to the outside of Jonathan Cutlip for that second position. I would probably go ahead and pencil it into that 22 car. He's got the outside line. He's got the run off of turn 4 and move Josh Adams into second. Then it's Cutlip, Fody, and Rogers, just as they ran before when they were 1, 2, 3. Now they're 3, 4, 5. Just behind them, it's Ryan Scholes, who's working his way forward in that 4 car, along with Nick Delicato and Gavin Hibbs. But it's almost like we've hit a bit of a wall. Those guys, Scholes and Delicato, Hibbs, they're not moving forward quite as efficiently as Stanley and Adams did.
And I have to wonder for some of those guys, and unfortunately, it's just really difficult to try and keep up with a field of 30-some cars. You know, if we had a pit reporter in real life, they'd be able to walk up and down pit road and count the number of stickers still sitting behind boxes, right? We don't really have that luxury here on iRacing. You know, it's possible some of those guys are babying it because they're on their last set and they know even if we get a caution, they've got to be able to have something to defend themselves with at the end of the race, versus some of those guys might even still, I mean, for all we know, maybe some of the guys that pitted last caution still have a set because they stayed out on a caution or two earlier in the race. And that's where it'll be very interesting if we do get another caution to see how that shakes out. Because I guarantee you,
Delicato.
Delicato out of shape. But I guarantee you, if we get another caution, whoever has tires is going to take them.
Right. I think there were 2 sets in the bank for a number of the guys that did pit. I think there might have been 2 sets and some of the guys that stayed out too.
Right. Those guys, there's probably some in both camps there now on even foot.
Right. Where there's 1 set left and there's a few stickers down there on pit road. Thanks, Robert. There are a few. We would think.
I would say they're probably the Walmart smiley face stickers, but I don't even know if those are a thing anymore.
I thought he misspelled stinkers.
And also, if Robert would even know about that, is that, I don't know if Canadian Walmarts had those stickers. Are Canadian Walmart?
Or did he really write stinkers? Because that could have been.
Yeah, I think it was stinkers. He just mistyped it.
Definitely a few stinkers down there.
Well, yeah. Yeah, at least one for sure. I know of precisely 1 stinker. They gotta stop putting us in here for 2.5, 3 hours at a time every Wednesday night, David. Thank goodness, ladies. I am happy to announce to our Elite Racing Network audience, this is our last full distance cup race of the 2024 B season.
Yay!
If you get stuck with us for this long the rest of the season, it's because we had another 30 caution race.
At least I feel a little more sane this week. I don't think we've quite lost the plot.
Well, that's an incredible update.
There it is.
That's fantastic.
That's perfect. Back in the field, Justin Wadsworth and Nick Delicato are having themselves quite a race right in front of Scott Crump. That seems to be about the closest battle on track right now. Wadsworth just had a look, and Delicato slammed the door on him.
Nick Delicato, I don't want, he probably in elite terms, he's maybe not the most aggressive guy in the field. He's not quite a Scott Crump or a Chad Frankenfield. But he's not Johnny Thomas either, right? He's never
Mhm.
got to be shy to, like you say, shut the door in that situation.
And Nick Indelicato is one of those guys that you give him an inch, he'll take 3 inches, right? You give him 6 inches, he'll take a mile. It's just he's very much one of the newer school racers in that his race is more important than yours, full stop. And it doesn't necessarily matter. we're getting some elite hit reporting from race
This is
control.
terrific. Maybe we need Rex to give Robert something to do. I
Yeah,
don't
Robert
want him to be
doesn't know.
spoiled.
He doesn't know what to do with his hands this week. Last week he was so busy. We did Robert's job for the entire first run. I don't know. I don't know what's so hard about it.
We did a great job.
We're taking 1/6 of the extra pay, right? 1/6 of the cautions.
That better be how it shakes out, you know. But yeah, I feel like it's this newer wave of racers that are Delicato loose again off turn 4. When they're racing around someone, it is very much a case of my race is more important than your race, regardless of anything. And
I didn't see it, but Josh Adams lost like a 1/10 and a half all at once there. He had actually gotten where he was closing in on Ethan Stanley here for the lead, but I think he must have had a moment and lost some ground.
I think the tires might be starting to give up their life on that 22 car.
Robert's having too much fun.
I'm going to have to mute race control.
Yeah, well,
Whatever
I think it's more fun than 32
Adam,
cautions.
Yeah, well, for sure. And whatever happened with Adams, he's starting to reel Stanley back in here. We might mess around and have a battle for the lead here shortly. I'm not sure.
And the frustrating part for Jonathan Cutlip and Tyler Fody as Gavin Hibbs has worked his way into 4th between them is, if this race happens to go green, which, we were not expecting, and there's still 48 laps to go, a lot can happen. But the way it's trending, this race is looking pretty green. You're leaving a set on pit road here, right? At least one, possibly 2.
Yep.
That's not what you wanted. I think you definitely feel like you made a mistake. A lot of time left, though.
There is, and I can say from experience, unfortunately, in our elite, I'm gonna be honest, I forget what we called it for trademark reasons, so I'm just gonna have to violate the trademark. The elite version of the Snowball Derby we did last December. Sorry, everyone. There went my invoice for race control earlier. I'm gonna have to pay that in a fine. But it was very similar to this in this regard that we had just enough cautions early on. That I was like, well, I'm gonna get one more. I'm gonna be able to put on my last set of tires then, and then we went something like 100 laps clean and green to end the race, and I was out there on 140 lap old tires with a set of tires still sitting in the pits. And the thing that can happen in a situation like this is you think, okay, every 30 laps we're getting a caution when these tires get used up. But the problem is with a race this long, 350 lap race, the guys that are on the track are the guys that have it figured out. These are the guys that haven't gotten into wrecks, haven't run into issues.
Oh, well, here comes Josh Adams spinning down the track in turn 3. Onto pit road goes Adams. Well, it's time to take your last set, Josh. Just as you talked about it, too.
Winter Derby Snow Bash.
Winter Derby, that's the one. Yes.
The Snow Bash.
Well, I didn't run the Snow Bash. I was running the Winter Derby, so you can stop correcting me on that. I'll take the Winter Derby.
Right. Josh Adams loose in turn 3. He went ahead and came down and got 4 pair of tires. Did Josh Adams in the 22.
Sure.
But that pretty much does hand the control of this race over to Ethan Stanley, and you could tell Josh Adams used up the good in those tires on the 22 car. He kind of paid for the early usage right there, and now it brings Jonathan Cutlip to second, but he's on old tires, so really it makes it so we have to see whether Gavin Hibbs has anything for Ethan Stanley here, and he picked up some time. over the last lap, but he's going to have to get around Cutlip and then pick up 2.5 seconds. That's a pretty tall task.
It's not going to be easy for sure, and I think, oh man, Gavin Hibbs a little out of shape there out of 4. I almost don't want to complete the thought. I think you got the hint with what I was saying, that it hasn't been an issue for these guys on track. So if you're going to get the green flag run, it's going to happen here. But Gavin Hibbs is trying really hard to
Following
discredit
Josh.
that line of thought, and
He's trying to follow in Josh Adams' footsteps.
I definitely don't want to follow in his tire tracks at the moment. They're still down there. You can see him as the camera goes through turn 4.
It's a little bit annoying too if you're Gavin Hibbs, because if you could get around Jonathan Cutlip, I think he could put together some pretty effective laps and get at least cut into the lead by Ethan Stanley. He might not necessarily pick up 2.5 seconds on the 91 car, barring some kind of catastrophic issue for Ethan Stanley, but it's certainly a possibility. But he's struggling to bypass even Jonathan Cutlip right now, who is on older tires. So, that makes Gavin Hibbs running down Ethan Stanley all the more unrealistic in my mind.
Yeah, no, unfortunately for these guys, I don't know if that's really...
Well, I say that. They gained 0.2 that lap. Both of them did.
Well...
5 car and the 95 car.
We'll see. I mean, they're still 39 laps. I mean... I don't know. Well, Gavin Hibbs is putting the cards on the table, apparently. He has gone all the way to the fence here. There was some tire smoke.
There's more tire smoke. Who's the culprit? You know who you are. Time version 2. we didn't see him.
They're avoiding us.
Oh. Gavin Hibbs got out of shape turn 2 that time.
Let's make a call to somebody who's deep inside the top 10 now. That is Trey Holmes in the 88 car. Trey got damaged in the Matthew Weeks and Chad Frankenfield incident. You can see it on the right side of this machine, as you're actually going to watch the power of fresh tires go flying by here. Probably on the outside, might be the inside on corner exit here. But Trey has had a marvelous race despite coming from a lap down and struggling with a number of issues in this one, but he's making it work right now, and Trey's car's pretty quick. He's doing a good job. The other guy I want to shout out is Corey Abbott, sitting in 11th place right now, and he's rapidly closing on Ryan Schold, and I know for a fact that this car did not pit last time through. So Corey Abbott starting to make inroads on the guys who did pit, like Ryan Schold, and that's mighty impressive by Corey Abbott.
That is pretty impressive for the 21 car, and if he can keep managing that over these final 35 laps, he might just find his way into the top 10 here. I mean, he's got a challenge for that right now with Zach Rogers running in that 10th position.
And look at just behind him, right? It's Spinny McGee, Johnny Thomas just went around there in turn 1, almost went around another time, and he's taking the car up a lane. You'll note he's running about a half lane up, trying to stay off of that apron. But he is definitely making a nice recovery drive. Went a lap down. He's been able to get that back, and now he's up into 12th, and he's definitely working towards a top 10 finish. And, for a guy who's in the playoff hunt, but needing good finishes to maintain that, Johnny is taking a big step in the right direction to make Daytona kind of a formality.
No. This is why we can't have 4 full distance races in a season.
350 laps is enough time for that to be funny.
Now it even says McGee in the scoring pile and everything. That's...
Oh my goodness.
I'm thorough.
You sure are, Dave. No one can take that away from you.
Before he does get into the top 10, Johnny goes around Zach Rogers. Zach definitely burned the tires up early in this run, trying to get around Jonathan Cutlip. And speaking of Jonathan Cutlip, take a look at the scoring pylon at the top. The car that has not pitted and has dominated this race, has clawed back. Oh,
Caution!
it's all over.
Ryan Schold is in the wall in turn 4. The 4 beside where it says 4 on the wall
Just in front of Corey Abbott and Johnny Thomas.
just gets loose on him.
And boy, this is exactly what a few of these guys, like Ethan Stanley, didn't want to see, but I think Gavin Hibbs was starting to fall back. He wanted to see this. I think Zach Rogers really wanted to see this, and the guys who didn't pit last time pretty much all wanted to see this. I think the only guy who's going to be really disappointed about this is Jonathan Cutlip. He had really come on strong. He pulled a second out of Ethan Stanley's lead on that run. He was going to get up to and challenge the 91 car before this race was over.
And this is going to set up something really interesting. Not just that we got to see who even has tires to bolt on here with 30 laps to go, but even once we restart, you're going to have presumably some guys on older tires. Guys are going to immediately try to get out front and get as many positions and as much track position as they can with fresh tires. And the guys that know 30 laps has been kind of pushing it to make these tires work. And they're going to try to save for that late race charge or maybe a green-white check.
And how many guys have 2 sets, right? If we go 15 or 20 laps, we've seen you can
Sure.
make up enough time over 5-6 laps. You can make up that many spots. So I think if anybody's got 2 sets left, right, they're hoping and praying for a caution. Jonathan Cutlip just overshot his pit box.
Well, it looks like all of the lead lap cars pitted here, so everybody had at least one.
Right.
But who's going to win the race off pit road? Not Jonathan Cutlip, as you mentioned. He overshot that, so that's going to be
6th or 7th for Jonathan
Stanley?
Cutlip off pit road. Yes, Ethan Stanley wins the race off.
tough break there for Cutlip, as you saw how much ground he lost with that one miscue.
So it will be Stanley, then Hibbs. Josh Adams got the lucky dog, so he is coming down pit road to, I guess, bolt on another set of tires. I guess everybody had about 2 left. 1 or 2 at least.
Sure.
Stanley, Hibbs, Fody, Trey Holmes is up to the 4th position now, with Cutlip 5th, Scott Crump 6th. Then it'll be Wadsworth and Delicato, Corey Abbott, Johnny Thomas, Zach Rogers. That's 11th, and then Gables 12th, Justin Vandermeer 13th, Seth Rawls will be 14th, Josh Clark 15th, Ray Bracey 16th, Michael Hosak 17th, Brent Jones 18th, and Josh Adams will restart 19th. That'll be your lead lap cars. Jordan Owens and looks like maybe Josh Personette trying to stay out and get back on the lead lap. I think that is indeed the case. Those guys going for the wave around, they'll get waved by the race leader, go to the back of the field by not pitting, and hope to gain one of their laps back. For Owens, that would put him 2 down. For Personette, that would put him back to 1 lap down.
So for Personette, you get a caution here potentially, and you're right back on the lead lap, which,
right,
with the night he's had, that'd be quite an accomplishment.
I think was he 3 down at one point, or I think 2 down was the most. But still, a definite possibility that Josh Personette can get back on the lead lap now, which you'd have to bypass Ryan Schold on old tires. That may be fairly unlikely, but 2 cautions, sure. And Owens still persevering, 22nd. Not going to be the night Owens wanted for a guy who's top 10 in points, but given that he was one of the few cars involved in a big incident that didn't break the car immediately, he's been able to have a decent enough recovery drive. And if there's some calamity here late, I think Jordan Owens is my guy who definitely would benefit from a few extra guys departing from this race.
And the crazy thing is, even though obviously he's going to lose ground on, I better not jinx it, but if things sit as they stand now,
if they sit as they stand now,
don't overthink
they will
that.
lie.
They don't overthink it. As they run now, which I hate because the race never ends now. But
they run as they walk now.
Can I talk? Golly. Jonathan Cutlip would make up points on him, sure. Scott Krupp would make up points on him, sure. But he's adding to the gap on guys like Chad Frankenfield. Obviously, we've talked about the guys above the cut line not running tonight. Overall, it's not going to be the end of the world if Jordan Owens can salvage this.
Mm-hmm. And he doesn't have to do much, I think. If he got into the top 20, which is very reasonable from 22nd, I think that would be a good night for Jordan Owens. Pace car is off. Ethan Stanley, the race leader, with a teammate behind. Stanley gets on the loud pedal, and Gavin Hibbs will be fighting back on the outside. And that's, I think, our last two races. We've seen Gavin Hibbs in this very spot, running second late in the race, trying to hunt down the race leader. Can Gavin get it done for the first time this season?
You know he's hungry. You know he wants it. He's going to hold on to that second spot for now. Stay in front of... Oh, mate wanted a little too much. Got a piece of the wall out of turn 4 there. That's not going to help as far as closing in on Ethan Stanley.
Now, what can Jonathan Cutlip do, right? He's the guy who has maybe been the fastest car all night long. He's mired back and forth. He's got to make his way through Tyler Fody, who's one of the most notoriously difficult cars to pass. And then Gavin Hibbs, who's as hungry as they come, maybe overdriving the 90 car a little bit right now. Nick and Delicato just got the wall on the front straightaway. But Hibbs is definitely overdriving right now. He is, I think, maybe the most desperate car in this field, right? This is a guy who's experienced the pain of loss more readily than anyone else in this top group of late. And ultimately, that's going to increase the desperation level on that 95 car.
Yeah, I wondered if there'd be anybody that might save something for a late race restart or a late charge if we do stay green. It looks like pretty much everyone on the screen right now is laying it all on the table at the moment.
Yeah, they are going for it here, and with just 22 laps to go, it is go time. We see Tyler Fody off the bottom of the racetrack running that top lane. That's how you know it's go time, because the 40 car is not running the yellow line.
And what that's allowed him to do is that open up that entry so that he could dive down to the yellow line here. But now he's got to run all the way up to the wall, make sure Gavin Hibbs can't dive into turn 3. And with any, I don't know, Gavin Hibbs might get the run on corner exit here. If he doesn't put it...
Contact!
Tyler Fody got, I don't know what to call it, luck. But boy, was he fortunate Gavin Hibbs wasn't a little further up that 40 car. Otherwise, Tyler Fody's head on in the fence right now.
That was about as close as it gets to that. That probably would be a multi-car melee if Tyler Fody gets hooked in front of the pack on corner exit there. Instead, he's running second, and he's got to just put his head down and chase down this 91 car.
Yep, Jonathan Cutlip running behind. Lake Norman 1-2 right now. And, you know, other than Ethan Stanley, Ethan's the only Lake Norman car with a race win this season as Hibbs gets the wall once again. Definitely overdriving that 95 for sure. You know, 3 weeks in a row of near misses is a lot. But Tyler Fody definitely still wants that team win, but Ethan Stanley is the only member of the team that has won this season. So at this point, probably a little bit of a pride issue for Tyler Fody. He needs to go out and get that 91 car.
A little further back, this is Justin Wadsworth, Zach Rogers, Scott Crump, all battling. Oh, that's 6th, 7th, 8th on the screen.
Yeah, and there's a lot of aggression right now. These guys are really pushing these cars, and what we've seen with amount of laps we have to go, by the end of this race, we will have some guys slipping and sliding big time.
Oh, I have to imagine it's got to be some of the worst slipping and sliding we've seen because, like you say, these guys are pushing harder than really we've seen all night.
Yep. Seth Rawls loose on corner exit. Ryan Gable just about scraped the wall there. There's been one or two of those every single lap here, and you're seeing a ton of position changes. Johnny Thomas goes around Corey Abbott. Seth Rawls now working to the outside of Corey Abbott in the 21 car. Abbott was pacing for a top 10 finish easily on that long green flag run where he had old tires and was working his way forward. Now Abbott pinned on the bottom. He might go back to 15th.
Yeah, that's got to be a tough spot to dig his way out of with everybody ripping on the middle side, the high side at the moment.
Ray!
Oh,
Big save by the 7 car.
Ray Bracy able to gather that back up. He'll fall back a little bit down to the 18th position.
Yeah, Bracy, though, working for a charter position, so, any top 20 points is good points. That battle rages on between Abbott and Josh Adams. Up here, it is Justin Wadsworth and Zach Rogers. Wadsworth driving the mirror a little bit. Oh, there's Personette on the grass. That's, I imagine, over pushing the loose race car, or the old tires race car.
Again, spinning off the racing surface, not going to trigger the yellow flag.
Yep, that works well for him. There's back on Bracy up front. Ethan Stanley is about a half-second lead over Tyler Fode. Fode is within striking distance, but has not been eating a ton into the lead of Ethan Stanley. They're effectively running the exact same lap times every lap.
And you say effectively. Look at lap 336.
They did. They ran the same lap.
That's you want to talk about consistency. That's yeah. They both ran well, on my end it shows 1/1000th of a second of a difference, but 24:21's both drivers on lap 336.
Remarkable there, and it's the top end of this series, right? Ethan Stanley 3 wins this season. Tyler Fode has won the championship in this series before, won a lot of races last year, searching for his first win this year, and we've talked to him a lot. Gave a very humorous interview last week at Martinsville where he just said, yes, and you should definitely go back and watch that one after you finish this one. But 10 laps to go. It looks like we're on pace to interview Tyler Fode again for another podium finish without a race victory. And I'll tell you, for a guy like Tyler Fode, that's definitely eating in him.
Yeah, unfortunately, these last couple of laps, it looks like Ethan Stanley has been able to open up a little bit on that advantage.
Yeah, he sure has. Fode's now off the bottom trying to make something happen differently, but as he gets to the line, yeah, he picked up a 1500th that lap, just not enough gains with 8 laps to go that Ethan Stanley's going to be able to give this race away. It'll be whether or not a caution falls as to whether or not I think Ethan Stanley loses this one. Seven laps to go. Tyler Fode took half a tenth out of the lead that time, but that's still not enough. Stanley up the track a little bit on corner exit of turn 2, but again, I think it's only about a half a tenth that Tyler Fode gained on the 91 car.
Yep, definitely losing some of the grip in those tires, the 91 of Ethan Stanley. Trying to keep an eye on these lap times. There's definitely been a little bit of fall off for Stanley, but I mean, we're kind of in that point of the run where everybody's kind of fighting the same thing. It maybe hasn't been quite as drastic for Fode, but still not making up enough ground to really close in with 5 laps to go.
Yep. Weather, track temp down to 87 degrees. I think it's as cool as it's been, and Stanley now ripping the top of the racetrack, trying to generate a little extra space between himself and Tyler Fode. Try to, just keep that 40 car at bay. That's all Ethan Stanley can do at this point with coming to 4 laps to go. Throughout the field, I think we're seeing less of the struggling on the older tires, simply because the track's a lot cooler. It's a lot harder for these guys to overheat the tires right now.
There is Jordan Owens, lapped car.
This is going to cost Ethan Stanley a little bit of time here, coming to 3 laps to go. Not much, though.
And it's got to catch Fode at a bad spot right here on corner exit, too. That might have actually... I thought it was a bad deal for Stanley, but it might have hurt Fode more in the long run.
Yeah, there's not much of a run left. Coming to 2 laps to go for Ethan Stanley. Tyler Fode's doing everything in his power, but right there. He loses another half tenth, and that's almost a tenth, and that should be all she wrote. And we got a
There's a car
spinner.
against the inside wall. It's not going to bring out a caution, though.
No caution. We stay green. Ethan Stanley continues on. It's Josh Personette once again. Ethan Stanley working towards that white flag. If he takes it, the race is official. Ethan Stanley has made the white flag, and Jonathan Cutlip's going to work after Tyler Fode for second.
White flag presented by Whiplash Sim Cams. Ethan Stanley down to backstretch. You see the battle for second behind him. That's the best thing Ethan Stanley can see.
Off turn 4, he disconnected from this race. He came back in, and he is going to take home the win. Ethan Stanley's going to be your winner at Iowa. The battle for second is won by Jonathan Cutlip in a photo finish with Tyler Fode. The top 5 round out is Trey Holmes and Justin Wadsworth. Then Gavin Hibbs, Zach Rogers, Scott Crump, Seth Rawls, and Josh Adams round out your top 10. A full distance 350 lap race at Iowa, and we had a lot of green flag runs tonight, but ultimately it was kind of a battle between Ethan Stanley and Jonathan Cutlip, and what we end up seeing is the short run king was this 91 car of Ethan Stanley. We saw that from the jump of the green flag. He took the lead over Jonathan Cutlip, led like the first 30 laps, and then Cutlip pulled away. Seemed like Stanley was the best car in the short run, Cutlip the best car in the long run, and with a late race short run, the best car in the short run won out.
Ethan Stanley celebrating on the front stretch. Taking a spin through the Legends Oval now.
Using the burnout cam.
Yeah, it's looking good.
Yeah.
Whiplash Tim Cans, the sponsor of the white flag,
Come
also
inside it. We're good.
get the sponsor of the burnout cam, probably. Stanley disconnects too.
He's had enough fun.
He's won 4 times this season. Has Ethan Stanley, and we'll take a quick look at the results while we wait for those guys to filter in. I mentioned the top 10 there. Ryan Gable finished 11th. Nick Indelicato falls to 12th late. Josh Clark finishes 13th with Johnny Thomas 14th. Corey Abbott does finish in 15th. Michael Hosak 16th. Justin Vandermarl 17th. Ray Bracey comes home in 18th. And then a couple of notes here on the second page. Jordan Owens does pick up to 21st. Brent Jones with a strong 19th place run. Leighton Norgard, after those issues, he'll finish 23rd, and then Jesse Racimus with one of the faster cars. He finishes in 25th. I'm going to give Tyler Fode a little bit longer of an interview. You know, last week we talked to him for a full 15 seconds after the Martinsville race. Moving him up. We're gonna pull him in. Tyler Fode, it's David in the booth. You got me, buddy?
Yeah.
We'll give you a longer interview this week there, Tyler, but third place, I think, is that the second week in a row? And, you were hunting down your teammate there, but it seemed like he just had a little bit more than you did. Take us through your night of what seemed like tire saving on that yellow line.
Yeah, that was it was a long one. I felt like I was pretty much on the wrong end of every single run. Every time I would try and save, and I would save, and then whenever I'd start going, we'd get a yellow, and it just happened over and over and over. And I thought surely we'll get a green run there at some point, and it just never happened. I think one of them I literally started going and was 2 to 3 tenths a lap quicker than the front guys. I was back in like 5th, and then we got a yellow. So it was just fighting that all night, and then just kind of track position and late pit stops there to get up in the top 3. But I felt like Clean Air was really good. Trying to match Stanley there right at the end. Felt like we were running kind of identical laps, and then it was kind of going off right at the end. But really long night, kind of frustrating to just be on the wrong end of it. Never really got to go 110% there till the end. But yeah, another podium. Don't know what to say really. It's just getting kind of common, but won the bracket, so that's cool. It's about the only thing we've won so far this season.
Indeed, you win that bracket challenge, and I mean, how is it getting frustrating at this point? Because I mean, obviously the runs are there. You're second in points. You're up front so often, but I know you want to win. How much is it eating at you that we're almost to the playoffs and you're still looking for that first win?
Yeah, I mean the points are looking good, but yeah, I mean a lot of podiums. The only thing that kind of softens it a bit is teammate winning. I always like to see that, but yeah, I'd like to win. It'd be cool. It's definitely going to be a factor here in the playoffs with some of these playoff bonus points that you get. So not really a speed issue. It's just kind of been strategy and some bad luck with some things. So I'm not worried about it yet, but yeah, maybe it'll start turning our way here soon.
Hey, Tyler, take me forward to the end of the playoffs. Imagine that you're in a battle with this fast little teammate of yours, Ethan Stanley. What's it going to take to get ahead of him?
Yeah, yeah, he's obviously amazing at what he does. I feel like we're close, but there's some. Tonight I felt like we were kind of equal. Like I said, dirty air and stuff like that. But no, he's a phenomenal teammate, great driver. I mean, if we can just keep doing this through the playoffs and get ourselves both into the Final Four, that'd be ideal, and then figure it out from there. But now just got to execute. The whole team, just all around, continue to execute and just see how it goes.
Well, with that, Tyler, any thank yous and shout outs you have for us before we send you off tonight?
Yeah, well, obviously Ethan there getting the win. I don't know when the last time someone's disconnected and come back and won, but that was kind of cool. Obviously got a shout out Cutlip, who not only ironically paints all of our cars, but has just been lights out the last couple weeks. I mean, crushed us Monday night, and honestly was the car to beat tonight. So yeah, shout out to him. The rest of the teammates, Wadsworth got a top 5 there. Crump got into the top 10. Gavel just missed it there, but always fun running with those guys. Look forward to carrying the momentum here into the playoffs. And thank you guys, obviously, for being up here and sticking with us, putting on the broadcast. I'm sure it's going to be a fun one to watch back.
Awesome. We appreciate it, Tyler, and congrats on the P3, and we'll see you next week, Daytona. We know you like that one.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. See you, Tyler.
Yep.
Let's grab P2 finisher Jonathan Cutlip and talk to him. John, it's David in the booth. If you got me, take us through your night. It felt like you were kind of the car to beat there for the longest time, but ultimately you fell just short.
Yeah, it was a night for sure. Kind of trying a few things out, just never really got a long run to figure it out.
That seemed to be the frustration or the challenge for a lot of these front runners is you try to plan for a long run and save those tires, and then the cautions just kept falling in those 30 to 40 lap intervals. Do you think if we had gotten one of those, maybe, I won't even say a green flag run where you had green flag pit stops, but at least 50, 60, 70, 80 laps, what would that have been able to do for your night?
It would have made it more enjoyable because the longer the car was out there, the looser it got. It was just enjoyable to drive. You're just end up searching for grip at that point instead of just sitting there and riding around. It's just, I was kind of just hoping for long runs. It just never really developed.
Maybe the longest run we got was that run before the final caution. You had dropped like a second and a half out of the lead for Ethan Stanley, despite not taking tires and him having fresher tires. Had this race gone green, do you think you would have gotten him on that run?
That's a good question. We started reeling him back in, and he started sliding the tires, so you never really know. I still think fresher tires would have made some difference, but it's kind of one of the hypotheticals that you really can't get into. It's just, pointless. But I feel like we had a good shot at it before that caution came out. It's just so many things out of your control that are just taking it out of your hands that you really can't do anything with.
And with that, John, any thank yous or shout outs you have for us? I do want to note you're looking pretty good for making the playoffs on points, and I kept harping that you'll need a win, but you did it without my suggestion. So yeah, I guess a note for that before the thank yous.
Yeah, we're just slowly pointing our way in. It should be looking pretty good going into Daytona now, so it's not going to be as high risk, but I still enjoy racing Daytona. I'm not going to pull back on that, but yeah, shout out to you guys, Dave, Westergreen, Zach. You guys are a good group. It's really well broadcasted. Shout out to my field up teammates. They're having a little bit of a rough night, but Trey brought home 4th. Yeah, race EPI. Shout out to my mom. She watches every race. Shout out to the Weeks family. Hopefully, some good news going forward. I'm not sure what's going on, but hopefully things are settled out. I'm not sure what's going on, but yeah. Hopefully, next week's a fun race to watch.
Could be. Daytona seems to always be fun with you guys up there, but congrats on P2, John, and we'll probably talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Time to get some water.
A long one for these drivers. And for us, I need some water too. But let's grab race winner Ethan Stanley and talk to him before we hop off tonight. Ethan, congratulations on the race win. You got disconnected at the beginning of this race, and I think that's the second, it might even be the third time that's happened to you this season. Take me through your thought process when that happens, and then I think this might even be the second time we've talked to you when you've disconnected during a race and you finished up on the podium. So anything you can do to stop doing this and having these massive comeback results?
Well, before it was a different issue that I fixed. This was the same problem I had last night, and I don't know, I'm going to try to figure it out, especially before the Indy 500 tomorrow. That would really suck to get disconnected from. But yeah, luckily there was a lot of caution, so I was able to get my laps back and get back in contention.
And getting back into contention, certainly the cautions fell your way as far as being able to get those laps back and get back on the lead lap. But I know it also had to be pretty difficult to negotiate the cautions and the tires, and when these cautions kept kind of falling in these regular intervals. What kind of put you in position to go for the win there at the end?
Well, I made the way through the field pretty good. I had better tires than everyone when I did. So that really helped out. I was able to get the stage points. And then after that, I mean, I took a different strategy than Cutlip, and it just ended up working out. What could have went 50-50. We got so many cautions that you didn't know when it was going to go green for long. So bit of luck on my part and a little bit of strategy. And otherwise, I think me and Cutlip are pretty even. Mostly just track position.
Hey, then take me through that last run coming up to the caution flag. You got the lead. You had Adams on your bumper. He ends up falling off. Cutlip starts reeling you in. Did you have more in the tank, or were you starting to worry that you wore out your tires a little bit?
No, I was struggling a little bit, just trying to get the tires to come back. And I think he might have caught me if we stayed green. But yeah, unfortunate for him. And then he just got unlucky on the next stop. He blew through his stall, unfortunately. So it really sucks. He was definitely the dominant car all night. And I feel like he had a really good shot, too.
Well, Ethan, with that, this your fourth win this season, buddy. You're absolutely killing it. Playoffs ahead, championship on the line, coming up. Do you have anything that this is you can kind of take away from this type of race? Richmond is the final race. Looking ahead to that, I mean, this is a similar racetrack. Like, are you taking away that you can definitely go out there and win this championship?
If I can drive like this at Richmond, I think I got a good chance, because usually Richmond's one of my worst tracks. And Never really figured it out in the Cup car, so I'm gonna have to practice that a lot. This definitely helps though. Did very similar tracks, just a little bit less bumpy at Richmond.
All right. Well, any shout outs there, Ethan, before we send you off tonight?
Yeah, of course. As always, big shout out to Blue Egg Marketing for being the sponsor on the car. JD Designs, John Cutlip. Shame for him. He makes these beautiful paints, though. He got one of them in Victory Lane. Big shout out to you guys for putting up with 350 laps of 30-lap cautions. Big shout out to Chad and everybody that runs the league, and Robert for coming in and admitting.
Awesome. Well, congrats, Ethan, and we'll catch you next week.
Yep, see ya.
That is race winner Ethan Stanley, and that'll just about do it for us. One more race before we set the playoff field and go hunting for a championship next week at Daytona.
Indeed, and man, it's going to be an interesting playoff battle. I think looking at the unofficial update coming out of this, Jonathan Cutlip certainly, like you touched on in his interview, not quite mathematically locked in, but definitely in a pretty good point spot. I'd say he's probably the first one that isn't mathematically locked in, but has to feel pretty good going into this last regular season race at Daytona. Trey Holmes is kind of sitting on the bubble right now, 7 points ahead of Justin Fortner and 8 points ahead of Ryan Schold, 10 points ahead of, or excuse me, that'd be 12 points ahead of Nick Massey. So those are kind of, and then you've got Tate Lytle is only 5 points ahead of Trey Holmes. So that's kind of where your hot spot's going to be going into next week.
And a race winner could dethrone all of that and knock Trey out of the playoffs. So Daytona definitely going to be a wild race and shorter than our Daytona 500 in the race tonight, but definitely one worth watching. So for Belly Up Sports, the Elite Racing Network, David Huckleberry, Zach Evans, and David Westergreen, we will catch you guys next week at Daytona for the regular season finale.